وقل رب زدني علما.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. On behalf of SiblingsOfIlm, I would like to extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, today at SiblingsOfIlm, we have a very special guest with us today. Shaykh Hasan Ali from London is with us today. For those of you who might not be aware, Shaykh Hasan Ali, hafidhahullah, he's a traditionally trained Islamic scholar who studied both in England as well as in Bangladesh. He has a master's degree in educational psychology from the Institute of London. The Shaykh is the founder of Safar Academy, which is a Maktab which has 5 branches all over North London and outside of London, with a total of over 800 students. He's also the CEO and director of Safar Publications, which publishes textbooks and resources for the next generation of Muslim students in the modern world. So, inshallah, in this particular webinar, we're going to have an interactive session with Shaykh Hasan. So those of you who want to ask questions, feel free to type in questions into the chat, and we can raise these questions with the Shaykh throughout his presentation, inshallah. So without further ado, I pass over the mic to Shaykh Hasan. فليتفضل مشكور.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Firstly, I'd like to thank SiblingsOfIlm for organizing this, and they partnered together with Safar Academy to have this session for all of us. And we're going to cover effective teaching and steps to success. Now, this is primarily aimed at the people who are engaged in teaching, and we're going to also talk about ways as parents, as people who are involved in the next generation of students, how can we make this teaching a lot more vibrant, a lot more engaging? What are the things that we should be thinking about in this ever and ongoing world of change? So, if I just if you look at the screens now, these are going to be the areas that we're going to cover, inshallah. So we're going to have we're going to cover the engaging and express and to express clearly. And that's just one area. We've got understanding the child's life. This is a total different, dynamic to teaching, because a lot of people who are engaged in teaching, they don't really, look at the child from the child's life. A lot of what we do is that we focus on our teaching. We focus on what we've got as a syllabus. We focus on the books that we're trying to cover. But there's a massive aspect of understanding the entire child's life and his background. And teaching changes when you look at it from the child's world. Okay. Then you've got the traditional Islam. So yes, we've got the traditional Islam, we've got the modern world. So how do we then balance the two things, as we're living? Because right now you don't see, what Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam or the Sahaba radiallahu anhum would have seen in their time. We see a totally different world, but yet we've got to live our lives according to that traditional Islam. We've also got dealing with parents. So this is specifically with staff and those who are engaged in teaching. How do you effectively engage with parents? We've got teaching methods. So we'll be talking about some teaching methods, inshallah. And lastly, we'll talk about broadening our own knowledge. Now, in the next slide, you'll see. So what you'll see is that we've got, we're preparing for a changing world. We're preparing for a changing world. We've got knowledge versus wisdom. We've got spirituality versus knowledge. So again, there's another whole 3 areas that we've got in terms of effective teaching. So in terms of our own teaching that we want to get done, we have to understand that we have to ourselves prepare for a changing world. Now, this changing world, look, what it means is that we've got children that now today have been born, more or less all of them have been born in a world of Wi-Fi. They've been born in a world where there's technology, the whole of the the internet, the effects of the internet. I mean, they haven't seen a world without Wi-Fi. And if you talk like to me or many who are there in terms of teaching, we've been born in a world that is not to do with Wi-Fi, a world we came into where you don't have all these gadgets that we've got around at this time. So how do we prepare ourselves for this changing world? Knowledge versus wisdom. There's a section coming later on, inshallah. We're trying to get the knowledge of Islam to these children, but if we don't take care of wisdom, which is something much more broader than knowledge, then we might have lost these children. For one, our teachers used to say this, for 1 ton of knowledge that you have, you need 10 tons of wisdom. What is wisdom? We're going to talk about that, inshallah. And then lastly, spirituality versus knowledge, because it's not just the knowledge that we want to share with the students, we also want these students to have their own, their spiritual engagement. Because when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gave the Sahaba Salah, for example. Salah is a very, very simple example. He didn't just give them the ruku, he didn't just give them the sujood and so on, but he gave them the khushu and the awareness of Allah Azza wa Jal in their salah. So both of them came hand in hand. And what we got to understand is, I've just given one example in salah, but we've got hundreds of these examples in the religion where every single thing that we do has to have a meaning and a wider awareness that a person has with Allah Azza wa Jal connected to this as ibadah. Even the du'as that we're reading, even the moments that we say Bismillah, for example, we say Bismillah before we eat. To get the students to understand that I'm saying this Bismillah because, Bismillah wa barakatillah, because I'm trying to make sure that the shaitan doesn't eat with me. Right? And that one of the core parts of the religion is, there's an old story that we've got, which is about Adam alayhi salam and his creation, and then you've got Iblis and so on. That whole thing is the first war against mankind, and it's the longest war that has existed in this world. Until the day of judgment, this war is going to stay, which is the war of Iblis onto human beings, because he wants to take as many human beings as he can with him to Jahannam. Okay, so that is something that we've got to have these children understand, that their whole life of Islam is actually, making them go through this whole process by preparing for this war, right? Engaging themselves in a way that they are completely ready at all times to save themselves from the snares of the shaitan, save themselves from the devil's traps, and at the same time make them ready to go straight to Jannah, inshallah. Yes, carry on, bismillah.
A sister's asking, is it not too young for children to tell them about Iblis? So, for example, children under 7 years old, is it not too young to tell them about that?
So look, the thing is, Iblis and Shaitan, there's different ways you can introduce Iblis and Shaitan, and it's how you introduce him. And you've got to be sensitive to children, how you introduce, for example, these concepts. Let's say even Jahannam, Allah's wrath, Allah being Al-Muntaqim, the one who takes revenge and so on. You've got to be very sensitive. I wouldn't ever teach a kid Al-Muntaqim, right? A young child. I would tell them about Shaitan, yes, and I would tell them about Jahannam, yes, because these are facts. But when we talk about Jahannam, what we want to do is we want to say, Jahannam is a place where there is fire, and those who are bad and those who don't listen to Allah, Allah will send them to that place. But inshallah, like let's say for example, we got little Ahmad in front of us. We'll say, little Ahmad, inshallah you won't be there because you're going to listen to Allah. Listen to Allah, then you talk about Jannah. So never mention to a child Jahannam on its own without mentioning Jannah. And for little children, there should be more mention of Jannah than Jahannam when you mention that. But there should never be just Jannah and no Jahannam, because that's also not our deen. They need to be introduced to these things. Now, what shouldn't be done is you don't go into the big details of the worst punishments in Jahannam at a young age. That's cruel, because the child is not ready to digest all of that. With Shaitan, how you want to introduce them is you just want to say that, we've got an enemy, he's a Shaitan, but if you always remember Allah, that Shaitan can't be with you. So say these positive things, because we know that from our hadith. You remember Allah, shaitan won't be with you. If you do your salah, shaitan won't be with you. If you read the Quran, shaitan won't be with you. If you say Bismillah when you enter the house, if you say Bismillah before you eat, if you say Bismillah, many of these occasions, shaitan can't remain with you. So that way you introduce that world of, there's a shaitan, he can come and whisper. And the whispering, look, to a little kid, you just want to say, he might whisper and say, don't listen to mum, or I'm not going to listen to mum, or I'm not going to listen to dad. I don't want to do this. So that's the way we express the whisper at the age of 5 or 4 or whatever, right? But at the age of 8 to 9, that all has to change. So by the time you get to 8 to 9, you have to start, giving some more description of, let's say, even hellfire, and of course more description of Jannah as well, more description of what the shaitan might do, might not do. So if you understand this, you have to have a gradual opening of this. And in the Safar book series that we've done, the Safar publications, you'll see that in our books from book 1, book 2, book 3. If anybody goes to safarpublications.org, you'll see that we've actually introduced it like that. So every year there's something new, something more that comes in, but it's never on its own. It's always with Jannah, always positive stuff. It's always about, with the spirituality, it's with the positive, awareness of Islam, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide, inshallah. And as I'm speaking, Imam Shaheen, if there's any questions, please, bring those questions in, inshallah, as people ask them. So here we're going to go into the first area, which is engaging students and expressing the clearly. Now, one of the foremost things we need as people who are engaging with these children is to have the right language. Okay, what's the audience you're teaching? What's their age group? What language do they understand? And how are you going to get your message across to them? I just want to mention one important thing here. Now, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did say to us that, he told us in a hadith of Abu Dawud, كَلِّمُ النَّاسِ قَدْرَ عُقُولِهِمْ. Speak to people according to their understanding level, according to what their intellect is able to grasp, what they're able to comprehend. According to that, you should basically focus your level of your level of speaking. So now the thing here is, a lot of the times we're not understanding that these children have got their own sort of vocabulary. They've got their own learning levels. They've got their certain level they won't understand. So for example, concepts that are too much for them, we don't want to use those kind of concepts in our lessons. Words that they can't actually understand, we don't want to use them. Now, you've got to break the words down for a younger audience. You've got to be, like, as a teacher, you have to know for year ones, it's got to be very simple. Have short sentences. Have easy words, okay, when you're talking to them. And even a lot more expressions as well to try and get your message across. Try and find synonyms with words that you're using. Many different synonyms. Try and get the students to also say things in their own words. And you'll understand that, the child actually understands this because they can express it in their own words. Now, that's one thing which is getting our own language right in terms of our audience. Second is that we've got to understand that we have to, when we're engaging with these students and when we're speaking to them, we have to understand that these students have got a world outside there which they relate to. And sometimes some words, look, I'm not asking teachers to speak their lingo, but you can drop one word or something just to create that closeness to the students. There's a hadith in Muwatta where there's a woman from Ethiopia and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used the word sana to her. I think that was the word, أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام, and that word means good. So he used the word of that other language to try and come across as someone who someone who's showing familiarity with that group of people, with that culture, And when you speak even one word of a language which people understand, it breaks the ice. It makes them feel like this person understands my world. So look, I'm not asking teachers to speak the street lingo, but a word once, just once, like something like okay fam. Yeah, now these children, they know the word fam, which is family, short for family, and they use that in a way where bro, I did this, yeah. So just once you drop that in and say, bro, what did you just say? And say it in their lingo. If you drop it once, what happens is that you've got their attention. Right? And I'm not saying, look, you keep that up all the time, but what they see you know what, he understands my world. He knows where I come from. He's got that, he said that word. Like, honestly, in any time right now, because we're in this time and age where the most two popular games these boys are playing is FIFA and Fortnite. Right? And you can put, FIFA and Fortnite, let's say, most popular game they're playing, right? Now, if in any one of your lessons, somewhere you just drop that name in, you've got their attention. They think you're one of them. For some reason, they think that you're someone who understands them. Oh my God, he's mentioned FIFA. He knows my world, right? Now, okay, the world of football. We know the world of football is massive out there amongst adults. Now, I'm not saying in your Islamic lessons you discuss football and so on and so forth, right? Although actually I had, interestingly enough, I had one time I went in school, it was the World Cup going on at the time, and I actually had to deliver an assembly. And I used my entire 30 minutes talking about football and relating to Islam. And what I said in that is, I said, look at a team, the team spirit you have to have. So I related that to brotherhood, right, in Islam. There's two ways of playing. There's an offensive way of playing football, there's a defensive way of playing football, right? So you can't just focus on scoring the goals, you have to also defend your team, right? And then I spoke about, look, we have to do a'mal, but we have to also protect our a'mal. That's defensive Islam, right? So we have to make sure shaitan doesn't take our reward away. But at the same time, we have to, create our reward, right? Now, I related so many different things to the rules of Islam just from the football field, right? You can't be a goal hanger, right? Why not? Because you're not playing for your team. You're just after that, you're sneaky, you're staying by the goal just to get yourself points. It's not about getting yourself points, it's about getting the whole team something. So therefore, we've got to do things for our community, not just for myself so that my image is out there, people see who I am, right? So the kids, for entire 30 minutes, it was a talk on football, but it was actually relating to Islamic concept. And just because I did that, what happened is all the kids, this was a year 6 class, all of them, not only were they engaged, they were speaking about this many weeks after that. Oh, you know what? Next time they look at football, they'll think about these Islamic concepts. And the thing is, look, we've got to relate to these children the same Islamic things, principles we want to teach them, but in a way that they are engaged. So, our own language, one of the first thing is our own language has to be clear. Like some teachers, I have to say, very, unfortunately, they're speaking always the street language. Even when they say them, they're saying them. And they're teaching like that. And I find it a bit, okay, fine, you can speak that, and maybe some students might engage in that, but come on, at the end of the day, our premises where we want to get these children to come is to a higher level, for them to look up to adults, for them to to mold their behavior according to the adults. We don't want them to feel that the street life is the main life. Now, sometimes, look, when you find somebody far-fetched from Islam, you need to use some of that thing to try and get them to come a bit closer, but it's a means to an end. All right, that's my point here, right? So let's go to the second point on the go ahead.
Just before the second slide, Shaykh, somebody is asking, if you have a class of mixed ages, then how would you accommodate them in light of these techniques?
Okay, so this goes in. Look, one thing I'm going to mention is, please go and see a lot of the free, and this is free for everyone. And one of the things about, when you give people something that is paid for, people complain that why is it not free? Right? You always get this. And when you give it to them free, they don't value it. Right? So we've had this thing for free for the last 6 years on sufferpublications.org, and there you'll find a teacher training material. We've spent 2 weeks in a recording studio. We've professionally recorded so many different videos on teacher training. So your question again was about?
Accommodating mixed classrooms.
So look, on this we've answered it there. Now I want the audience here to actually, please go to those videos, see that. So just on that note, to answer the question, we would encourage to try and get as many students as you can of the same age range. in a class. Where you can't do that, then you should try and get, for example, someone who's age 7, 8, and 9 perhaps in a class, or 6, 7, 8 in a class, and then you can focus on 9, 10, 11 in another class. So you want to keep those numbers very close together, the age groups, because it's very difficult to have a lesson where you've got a 6-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 15-year-old, and you're trying to get your Islamic, concepts across. It's very, very difficult, because how are you gonna get all three? You'll have to pitch it at the 6-year-old. So this is one thing I'd say: anyone who's got mixed age groups, always keep the language level at the bottom, at the lowest age group, or the lowest age person in that group, and from there you can then target the others as well. But you will lose the others who are older if you have a wide age sort of group. So the second bullet point on here is about motivation. What motivates them to practice critical thinking. Like, look, we don't want to create robots out there who are going to just give the same answers all the time. Why? Because look, today we're in a world where new questions are being asked about Islam. How was I prepared, or all the students who went with me prepared, who went to Maktab or went to Madrasah when we were young? They didn't even know there's going to be a world of today's world, where internet, with a click of a button, you've got the entire, kufr of the world that you can see, and all the different, objections to Islam you can see. So now, how do you get this generation prepared for tomorrow? Is that we've got to give them things that will engage them in critical thinking. We've got to allow them to speak. One of the things I'm going to tell all the teachers here: please do this again and again. I did this so many times. I taught on the madrasa level. I taught, I think it was 12, 13 years on the trot, and I'm still teaching different classes sometimes. But not like I did for 12, 13 years. Those days I used to teach every single time there was a teaching session. So one of the things I used to do, and I'm asking all the audience to do this, is your syllabus is there, fine. Your material is there, but please have hours or certain hours, certain days, okay, they're going to be off topic, where you're going to ask the students, tell me what's going on in your world. Tell me what's going on in your school. Tell me what's happening in your RE lesson. Tell me, what did you see in school? Anyone see anything like? Get them engaged. Ask. So what do you talk about in the playground? What do you do? What kind of things are you talking about to your friends? And these days, kids have got their smartphones, and through that, there's so much information that they're spreading amongst each other. There's always going to be something. For example, right now, if there was any teacher that's going to talk to them about something, I'm sure, right, they're going to come up with Squid Game, right? Some child, someone's going to say, well, sir, is it okay, or Ustad, is it okay for me to watch Squid Game? Now, look, there's two things to do here, and I'm telling this very specifically to the teachers. Please understand, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam's sunnah is never to shut anyone down, no matter what their question is. Please, as teachers, never do this. Never shut them down, no matter how bad of a question it is, right? So, for example, let's go to the hadith in Ahmad. A Sahabi comes and he asks the Prophet ﷺ, according to riwayah, which has got a good chain in Ahmad, he says, Ya Rasulullah, give me permission to commit zina. Right? He wanted to fornicate. And the Prophet ﷺ didn't know. The Sahaba were eyeing, they were really, enraged that this Sahabi comes, and young man comes and asks the Prophet ﷺ this question. But the Prophet ﷺ, the way he answered it, he never shut him down, but he made him think. And this is the critical thinking that is coming, right? So he said to him, he said, do you have a mother? He said, yes. He said, would you like anyone to do that to your mother? He said, no, I wouldn't. He said, well, people have mothers too. He said, do you have a sister? He said, yes, I have a sister. He said, would you like that act to be done with your sister? He said, no, Ya Rasulullah. So Prophet ﷺ said, well, people have sisters too. Meaning that the woman you want to do it with, she's either a sister, a mother, someone's daughter, whatever. So it makes the person think, right? So really important thing, if you take anything from today's thing, is look, open them up. Let these kids open their minds up. Something that, our syllabus, any syllabus that you're covering in your madrasa has never discussed, because it's a new thing. Like, which syllabus out there has got Squid Game in it? Nothing. Which fatwa site has got it? You probably only maybe one or two, right? If that, because it's a very new thing. Let them ask. If you don't know how to answer it, then my thing is, go and ask another senior teacher, senior imam, senior sheikh the question. Let him give you the answer. Just say, look, a simple thing is, I'll think about it, I'll do further research about it and I'll come back to you. If you don't know, if they put you on the spot, say that. But you should never say, what kind of question is that? Or you watch TV, or you watching this, or you watching Netflix, and then to make them feel bad. Because what that's going to do is this. The moment you shut a student up, no matter how bad the question was, right? You have lost that child for life. And then that child, when he closes his door, because he was embarrassed, and he feels that, you know what, the teacher made me feel so small today, I'm never going to ask another question again, because it might be one of those questions where he, shows or she shows me her wrath, and then I'm made to look stupid again, right? In fact, I'm going to add one more thing. The most challenging students you've got are probably the greatest leaders that you've got sitting there in your class. Now you've got a choice. Either they become leaders in Islam, or they become leaders on the streets. If you throw these children out, they're going to become leaders on the streets. And I've seen this myself, right? I've actually witnessed this myself. I've seen this. Those kids, if they've got the guts to ask you questions, if they're brave enough, the younger they are, the more naughty they are, the more challenging they are, the more outspoken they are, the more leadership qualities they show, even if they're ringleaders, even if they're people who dominate the group around them. These are the ones that you want to focus on. Right? Yes, you want to focus on everyone, but especially these. Now, they're going to challenge you. They're going to make other students probably behave in a way in your class that's not comfortable to you, right? But these are the ones you want to keep engaged. Now, let's go back to the whole thing about the Squid Game and so on. Now, don't shut them down. Answer them. If you don't know, if you don't have watched it, if you don't know anything about it, go and find out. Right? I'm not going to give the answer right now, but it's a question that comes up right now because it's something modern, relative to us. Now, why did I bring this up? Because I want you to say to the kids, look, what's going on now? When I did this, their doubts, the things that RE teachers were saying who were atheists, we've got to understand 80% of the teachers in this country, RE teachers, are actually atheists, and they're teaching RE or RS in school, religious education, right? And these students, our Muslim students, are going there. So what are they hearing? Now, these things they've heard need to come back to my Maktab class so that I can give them my answer and I can keep them in Islam. And there are so many other things that are related. Let's say, for example, somebody has come across drugs in the streets, or somebody has seen something on the streets which I don't know about in the masjid. I've got to get that out of them. Now, if we do this, then we can prepare them for the next generation, right? Because we will give them the tools to think, because this kind of conversation will be a rich conversation. Is going to make them feel that, you know what, he's relating to me what's going on today. Now, this is what happens when you do this. Let's say, for example, 20 years later, this child now is, I don't know, maybe 32 years old, right? So at 12 years old, they ask you this question, but they're 32 now. At 32, we talk about 20 years from today, it's 2041. Now, I don't even know what kind of, I'm going to put quote unquote, the Jalik world we're going to have out there, right? But can you imagine, like, that student is now going to be prepared for that world. Now, I tell you, the least is going to happen is this. If you were a teacher that was able to engage them, give them relevant answers for the time that they spent in your maktab, right? That child will at least come back to you and ask the question. At the age of 32, if you're still alive, they'll come back to you, they'll find you, and they'll ask you a question. I've taught students 20 years ago till today, when they have a pressing question, they come to me. And any of my students have been there in the past 20 years ago. A lot of them, if I meet them, I give them a number, and they keep in contact with me. And there's pressing questions, like, for example, look, they never dealt with buying a house before. I never taught that when I was teaching them 20 years ago. But now they're heading for a mortgage, so they ask me the question. This is a question I've just had in the last month. But they come to me. Why did they come to me? Because I kept that door open for them. And this is one of the things about teaching. Please get them to open up. If you look in the Quran, what did they ask? They asked the Prophet ﷺ about mahid, about women's menstruation. They asked about khamr and وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الْخَمْرِ وَالْمَيْسِرِ. They ask you about intoxicants, about gambling, right? These questions are in the Quran, are the topics of the day, which was something really, it's something dazzling for them to question. So they asked the Prophet ﷺ. So anyway, the last thing on this slide is about promoting meaningful learning experiences, which is again related to what I've just said. So we're going to move on to the next slide, inshallah. Now, are there any questions you got to know? So let's move on to the next slide. So here we've got, look, and I'm going to say to all the audience as well, please, as I'm speaking, if you've got any questions, do try and send them in, because by the end of it, we will have a Q&A session, inshallah. We'll have some time for that, and we'll be glad to hear some of your questions as well related to what the material that I'm giving you. So this slide is about understanding the child's life, and this is one area which a lot of people really don't, they don't really focus on. A lot of even parents, even especially teachers, need to know about this. So if you've got children, then I'm going to start from one end of this. So if let's say we start from the top right hand corner, so we've got about parents, okay? When I'm teaching a child, I have to understand that that child has got parents. Those parents have got their own lives, okay? Now, sometimes when a child is not performing well, or even if they are performing well, it could be because of their parents. Sometimes there's arguments between parents. Sometimes there's, just this morning there could have been a massive argument between parents. It could be last night. It could be an ongoing thing. You could even have a single parent. Right? It could be just a mother on her own. It could be a father on his own. Let's say, for example, parents are there. Now let's extend it to grandparents. Sometimes grandparents might be bringing politics between the parents, which then spill over to the children. Right? And this is the student that you've got in front of you. Sometimes parents have had a very, very awkward and a very sad upbringing, and they weren't shown love. And therefore, how are they going to show love to their child? Sometimes parents end up with very low expectations, and that low expectation is going to transfer straight into the children, because the parents are like, I just need to send you to a maktab or a madrasah because I have to do it. The social expectation of me is that I have to do it. If I don't do it, then people will question me. So they've got very little or no expectation of what the kid's going to get. So they just, and sometimes, look, we know this, that they send a child just to learn Quran. It's very unfortunate that parents out there are sending, alhamdulillah, we're seeing a change. In the course of the last 10, 20 years, alhamdulillah, we've seen a big change. There's more change yet to be, seen on the surface of things. But sometimes that is the case. Why is the child here? I've had students, subhanallah, when you engage with the child, trying to understand their life in all these different areas, you see a complete different person, right? So it's not about me getting my best exam results. If you get stuck on this thing that my class and all the results in my class for all the students I've got, they've got to pass, 80% or above, right? And I'm going to be seen as a teacher that didn't teach properly if I've ended up with a few students that got 40% or 50%. Why you focus so much on the exams? In fact, just on the exams, I'm going to say something, because a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing right now is coming from my education psychology degree that I did in MA, which is, the word exam can terrify some children. Right? There's a whole studies being done about children who are really good at engaging with you throughout the entire year. But the fact that they're going to sit in an exam hall and have 2 hours, and within those 2 hours, they're going to make sure that they get all the answers right, that gives them stress. It actually causes palpitations inside them, and they panic. Right? So look, yes, we want to have exams. I'm not against exams, but please do understand that exams is not the all in all, of ways of assessing children and knowing where they're going to end up in life, because beyond exams is their life, right? So now, I shouldn't be bogged down with just the exams or just the level of these these students getting the syllabus completed, knowing for me, okay, tell me what are the 4 fara'id of wudu. Yes, it's important that children remember this. But let me just break the ice a little bit, right? If a child knows how to do the entire wudu, so for his entire life, he's going to now wash his hands, he's going to rinse his mouth, the nose, then the whole face, he's going to wash the face, he's going to wash both arms, right then left, he's going to do massage over his head, and then he's going to wash his feet. And he's going to always do that because that's his system. Then I'm asking him, what are the 4 fara'id of wudu? What are the 4 obligatory things of wudu? And he doesn't know the answer to that. Should I really be so stuck with this that I'm seeing this child as a failure, that he doesn't know the 4 fara'id of wudu, even though I taught him, it's in the syllabus, it's written there, I've made him memorize it, I've made him go over it so many times, he doesn't know it? Come on, guy, man, chill out. Honestly, because he's doing his wudu properly. And it's not that he's ever going to come to a situation, this kid is never going to come to a situation where he has to do wudu quickly and he's going to have to remember, what are the 4 things I need to wash? You know, we're not going to see this case with this kid, because this kid thinks wudu is only one way. You start with the hands, then the mouth, the nose, then all the whole system I said, and it's going to go to the end. So look, when it comes to exams, sometimes we're really so stuck on with, they've got to say 3 things here, 4 things there, 7 things here, 6 articles of faith, and this many kalimas. And yes, they're all important. Kalimas are important, don't get me wrong. Yeah, but don't get so stuck on this, because there's a life beyond this, which is the kid, right? What's the kid? Now the kid is a person inside. He's got a personality. He's got his character. Now the first point is his parents. How did they bring him up? What's going on in the house? Do they have tarbiyah in the house? Do they have any Islam in the house? Do the parents practice Islam? I can give you stories. Look, I've seen this myself. I'll just give you one, because I've got so many stories to share in all these different areas. Okay, and I don't know how much time is going to allow me, to continue. But look, straight up, right? I've got one family that came to me. The child, she was a girl. Okay, she was about 6 or 7 years old. How did the child come to my place? First thing, right? I was invited as an imam to go and give a talk in a house, right? And this house was of mainly non-practicing parents. Okay, non-practicing parents, they're all professionals. Okay, they're all either doctors, engineers, accountants. Okay, this was in my own North London region. So they decided to call me over and give a speech on Islam to their children. This was once a month. So they had this, sometimes they used to alternate the houses, but I used to go once a month. Sometimes it would be every 2nd month, sometimes it would be every 4th month or 3rd month. Okay, so they'd gather children together, they'd get me to speak about Islam. These children had no other Islam practically except for this speech that I was going to give. Okay, so I talk about anything over an hour. We have Q&A, we have food, and that's it. The rest of the month, these kids are doing the maths, English, science, private tuition, boom, 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 boom. All parents are non-practicing. All of them non-hijabs. All the men no beards. Okay, but I went there as an imam because I thought, okay, this is my community and I need to go and serve this. Out of them, one set of parents once asked me, okay, we want to send our children somewhere for them to learn. None of these parents were doing this. So this one family said, we're going to send these children. So I said, okay, send them to my Safar Academy, to the masjid. They did. Now, imagine this. The mom's coming without a hijab, the dad's coming without a beard and all that, and they've got no practice in religion. But they said, you know what, we're going to give our child in the Maktab. Now, what we saw, subhanAllah, this is over 11 or 12 years. Because one of the things we do, Safar Academy, I'm going to say this to all the teachers out there. Please, please, and I'm going to say a 3rd time, please, don't see the children's education as an end goal at the age of 12. Unfortunately, that's the age we target them to. 12 is the beginning of their real life. Why are we ending their maktab education at 12? Why on earth are you doing that? They use an excuse that the girls are getting, baligha, they come to the age of puberty, it's going to be difficult. Why is that the case? Why don't you keep the girls till 16? Till they're going to go to college? Why don't you keep the boys? And we talk about, okay, keep them separate, but keep the boys till 16. And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to engage them in rich content that you're not just repeating. Like, look, if you're going to be a teacher, you're going to walk in the class and you're going to just do a bayan. Like, you haven't prepared for the lesson. One of the biggest problems with teachers is, and this is why you lose your students, is you walk in the lesson and you never prepared for it. You've had a hard day at work, right? You finished at work maybe 4 o'clock. You go home, you quickly eat, you could rush into the masjid at 5 o'clock to teach, right? And then you haven't prepared for it. So you're just going to walk in there and you're just going to, what the kids call, waffle. And when you waffle in the lesson, the kids know it. And they're going to sit there, they're not going to say anything to you. But they know you're not prepared for it. So what you end up doing, you got a 45 minutes lesson or 1 hour lesson, half an hour of it, you just talk about some bayan, some random stuff, right? Yeah, and sometimes you have a go at the kids, right? So you walk in the lesson, you got nothing else to do. Hey, why haven't you done your homework? Oh, you should do your homework. You're not doing it. You're going on for half an hour just telling them why, because you got nothing prepared, right? I see that, subhanAllah, I'm like, what in the world? Like, seriously, is this real? And it's happening. It's happening right now. And sometimes what happens is this. They walk in the lesson and they're still occupied with the smartphones. Why on earth are you even taking your smartphone out or your tablet or laptop out during the lesson? Why are you looking at your phone? It should be almost haram for you to do that. Why? Because your eye contact needs to be with those kids for the entire 45 minutes, for the entire 60 minutes that you're there. You shouldn't take your eyes off. I've seen so many things, right? So, but anyway, come to this whole thing of preparing the lesson. If you prepared for your lesson, if you know what you're going to say, you come to that lesson, you come like what can I say? You come to the lesson with those kids at the end of the 60th minute, they're going to say, Ustad, first is we don't know how fast this lesson went because we're so locked in. Second is we wish you could have carried on. And we're looking forward to the next lesson you're going to give us. If you can do that, and that can only come from preparation. You can't do this without preparation. If you can do that, lesson after lesson, guaranteed those kids will stay at your place till 16. Those kids, we've found sometimes kids are 17, 18, they're not leaving our Safar Academy. What we actually did then is we gave them graduation certificates at the age of 16 for them to leave. Why? Because we've got a massive queue. We've got students that are, we've got a 400 whatever list of students. We can't enroll kids if these kids don't leave. So we had to say to them, please, thank you, Mubarak, you're looking like a teacher right now. Your beard's growing all the way to your chest right now. Can you leave, right? Now that's the kind of thing that we want people to do, which is engage them. All right. Now come back to this thing about this family that I was talking about. The girl stayed till 16. But during her 11 years with us, we started to see a change in her parents. You know what this girl was saying? And her brother joined, and then her sister also joined later on. This girl was waking her parents for Fajr at the age of 10. Now, this is in a non-practicing Muslim family. Imagine, right? Imagine, parents have just, they're sleeping out in the morning, they got work at 9 o'clock, right? And the girl comes around and says, Dad, please wake up for Fajr. Mom, wake up for Fajr. Because she's set her alarm up, or she's getting up because she's heard all the fadail, she's all the great benefits of waking up early in the morning. And these are things that we want to engage with students. Don't just tell them wake up for Fajr. If you don't wake up for Fajr, you're going to curse and it's going to happen. Don't say, no, of course, you can use that. But before you use that, say that angels are around at Fajr time. They're going to witness you reciting the Quran at Fajr time. Allah Azza wa Jal says that if you do your Fajr, then He is going to give you protection for the rest of the day. Especially if you do some nawafil in the morning, there's a hadith to do with that, there's some to do with Fajr. Give the whole thing that Fajr is a special time with Allah Azza wa Jal, okay? Make them feel positive. There's other hadith that you'll feel very nashitan, and you'll feel very sort of active throughout the day because you did your Fajr on time. Whereas you're going to feel a bit miserable throughout the day when you don't do your Fajr on time. Now, these things will motivate the kids. Now, I'm going to ask teachers, please, all right? And a lot of this stuff we put it in our Safar publications. If you go to our books, you'll find all these things there, which is, we don't just give you the fiqh of something. We'll give you the fiqh with that fadila, with that encouragement from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from hadith, right? We'll give the spirituality right next to it. If you don't look out for these things, you're not going to see them. But this was the whole inspiration of getting those Safar publication books there, because my teacher, Mullah Fadl Rahim, may Allah bless his soul, he told me, he said, look, this is the kind of syllabus we need to get done. For the 99% of the students out there that will never come to a Darul, that are never going to come to a madrasa, we need to create a syllabus that's going to take the cream of the crop of the alim course and give it to them. But he said to me, he said, Hasan, make sure where you put the fiqh, mas'ala, where you put that, right next to it, put the fadila, put the reason why they do it, put the encouragement, put the spirituality next to it, right? All of it together. So when they introduce to it, they introduce to all of it, right? So this girl was waking her parents for Fajr in the morning. And then what did we see? We saw one day the mother's wearing hijab. And then we saw the mother's, wearing a full hijab. It started from a loose hijab to a full hijab, right? Then the mother was wearing the full, abaya. Then what did we see years later? We saw the father had a beard. And then the parents became full practicing 5 times salah, not missing in a single salah because of the children that came to the maktab. Now, we had a choice. We could have targeted those children and said, and looked at them funny and said, what kind of kids are they? We might have said we don't want to enroll them, but that's not what we should be. We want to enroll all children and be open, right? And I'll tell you another thing, look, in the last 20 years or 25 years, we've had a massive influx of Somalian children coming into, Somali families that have been settled in the UK, right? Now, I'm going to be straight up with you. 30 years ago, they started to come like 30 years ago or something, but more so 20 years ago, right? 20 years ago they were coming more, and what happened is straight away, a lot of these kids, they weren't the most settled kids in your maktab. So if you ever enrolled, I'm talking about 20 years ago, had a Somali family give their children, you might see that the children are quite hyperactive. Now, you got to understand the reason why. Because they've just come from a war-torn country. You've got to understand that parents have left Somalia at that time because their country has been fighting a war. Now, there's always going to be effects of that on children. Okay, and I'll tell you another thing about these Somalian children, which should be a focus, right, for us, which is they're very intelligent, these kids. They're very smart. But whenever you've got a smart kid, they're going to challenge you. It comes with a price. And if you're not ready for the challenge, you're not going to see the best of that kid. And I'm asking, look, enroll as many of denominations you've got of children, Turkish children. You've got, we've had Chinese children, coming, who are from families of Muslims, whichever denomination they come from, enroll them, bring them in, because this is our Muslim ummah. It shouldn't be just our own communities, our own skin color, our own ethnic background, our own. This happens in certain areas. I'm just mentioning that, right? So now look, with these children, if they're challenging and if they grow up, you're going to see a massive change in the entire family. Okay, so let's quickly move on to the second thing on that slide, which is the kid has a life in your madrasa. So all the other children in that setting, they've got a connection with them. So there's a deeper connection with those kids. So the effects of those children are going to have effects on other children in your own madrasa. Even the rules you've got in your madrasa will have effect on the kids. Whenever you've got an organization and the rules are very, very strict to the top level, what you'll see resentment from children. Whenever you have your rules that are very lenient, you're going to have effect. The thing is to get the balance right. So if you've got your rules, you need your rules, but if you can apply your rules in a moderate way, not being so strict, not being too liberal, but being fair. The one thing kids love is for you to be fair. If you're fair, they don't care. If you apply the same rules to everyone, so there's no sort of special rules for committee members' children. There's no special rules for imams' children. I've literally said to my teachers out there, I say, you treat my children exactly as you treat all other children. I don't want to see a difference. If I see ever a difference, I'm gonna be taking it out on those teachers, because I don't want to see favoritism. There should be no favoritism when you've got children there. So they really appreciate this. Okay, so there's a life there. Think about it, that those children are affecting that child in front of you. That child in front of you, the third thing we've got here is that they've got an online life. So you've got to understand, sometimes they've met someone online, or they're engaging with someone online, or they're talking to others online, WhatsApp or whatever it is, that has an effect on this child. Number 4 you've got here is siblings and friends. So, they've got their own siblings. I know we're here with siblings of ilm, right? But we're talking real siblings here, right? Because, look, let's say, for example, he's got a brother who's a druggie. That's going to have an effect on his life. He's got a brother who went to jail. It will have an effect on his life. You've got a brother who's not practicing Islam, a sister who's not practicing Islam. It's going to have an effect on the sister, the younger sister. So bear that in mind, and bear in mind that, look, sometimes, look, just because you can't get through to this child doesn't mean you sort of end your relationship with this child, as in you write them off. Don't write children off. I've seen, look, I'll give you another story, okay? There's a child that we had in our Safar Academy. He had the longest record of going through the Qaida, which is the elementary book of learning the Quran. He was on this book for 8 years. Never came off it, never wanted to learn, never did his homework, always late, always staying, you know, if there's a detention, he's staying behind. If there's extra help, we give him everything we want, but the child is not learning. So what did I do? I did everything I could with the child, but I couldn't get him to learn. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to go to your house. I said, you know, I need to talk to his parents. I went to the house. When I went to the house, I did engage with the parents. Parents are lovely. They gave me all the food and everything else fine, but I was here to talk to the parents about the child. But when I walked in the house, I realized, you know what? Now I understand why. And unless you get to that level, you won't understand. Why is this child in front of me not learning? I realized he has 6 other sisters older than him. He's the only boy in the family. The dad has spoiled him to the max. His wish is his command in this house. The way in Jannah, whatever you say you get, his kid in this world, whatever he wants, his dad gives it to him, right? Because he's the only son, right? The sisters are all non-practicing. At that time when I saw them, some started to practice later on, but at that time they were non-practicing. I walked in the house and I realized straight away, he had all the console games. All the console games, because he's asked his dad for this, for that. The amount of games he had, I was like, wow, like this kid is addicted to these games. He's got TV there, he's got everything you can mention. Plus his mum was Bengali, she's cooking all the curries. His dad basically was doing running 2 businesses, so he's too busy to be in the house. His mum's running around 7 kids. He's getting away with everything. And I thought, you know what? I don't need an explanation. I came back to my madrasa, to my maktab, and I said to all my children, all my sort of staff, I said to the staff, you know what we're going to do? We're going to befriend this kid from today. No more telling him off. No more trying to, you know, be on his back to get his homework. None of it. I said befriend him. And this is one, I'm going to ask all the teachers to do this. Whenever you see a kid that is not engaging or learning, the step to take next is friendship. Don't lose that. Because I tell all my staff, you got 2 things. 2 things you should never lose with this child. Number 1 is he has to have love for the masjid. Number 2 is he has to have love for the teacher. As long as these 2 things are there, one day he'll come back. And I kept on saying that. So I made all my staff, you know, I told them, no more telling off. Let this kid come, let him learn what he wants, whatever he can. Because there's no point, because the more we drag it on, the kid's going to hate us. He's going to hate the masjid. He's going to hate the books. He's going to want to move away from here. I said, no, don't do this. Guess what happened? So another 4 years, we just say, all right, Jamal, his name was Jamal. Jamal, how you doing, man? You all right? You sit down. How's life? How's it going? This and that. Yeah, you've had some chicken and chips. What are you doing, right? So after a few years, you know, he left, right? At 16, he left. He stayed till 16, he left. One day I was in the masjid and I think he was about 18 years old at the time. Suddenly, when no musallis were in the masjid, he ran in the masjid. And he was breathing very heavily and ran in the masjid. And I said, Jamal, I said, what are you doing here? Why are you panting like this? He said, sir, Ustad, the police are after me. I said, what have you done? He said, oh, I got a fight in the town and, you know, the police are after me. So, you know, one thing straight away, I thought, subhanallah, the one place he knew to come when he's in trouble is the masjid. He knew he could come to me. He knew he could come to the imam, to the masjid. He knew that, you know what, if there's somewhere I need to run, I can run to the masjid. And alhamdulillah, mashallah, you know, I didn't tell him off. You know, it was a fight he got in the town. So, you know, I spoke to him, Jamal, how are you, this and that, whatever. So, you know what, he came again. And then what happens is, after a few years, he starts to bring food for his father in i'tikaf. Right? After another couple of years, Jamal is growing a beard. And that change comes in him. Why? Because we never gave up on him. We understood his life was complex. It wasn't anymore about finishing the syllabus or getting to know this and that. It was about the child. It was about the person. It was about the life. Please, all teachers that are teaching, please remember this. Never, ever underestimate your power as a teacher when you're in that position, when you've got that That it's a human in front of you. Never forget that. There's a soul there. There's a person in that corpse, in that body, in that skeleton. There's a ruh there. Now reach out to that. And whenever you make connection with that, they'll never forget you. Even if they go to midlife crisis at 35, 40, they'll come back to you. Right? And that's when you can teach them Islam. But don't say something or do something with them at the age of 12 or 13 that you lose them for life. Because then that kid will become a druggie on the streets. And you won't see them again, probably never again, until their janazah or until they're 40 and they've done so much bad and then they realize what religion is. Anyway, as we're mentioning here, siblings, their own family members can have an effect on them, friends can have an effect on them. The next one is community. Their own community around them is affecting them all the time. The streets that they're playing on and so on and so forth. Their own mind. The next one we've got there is their own mind. Because look, sometimes shaitan is putting new waswases in your head which the next man or the next boy or the next girl is not having. Right? These are unique to you. Because you saw or you experienced something. For example, I'll tell you a common thing, right? A lot of children are growing up hating Islam, not because of Islam, but because their parents introduced a cultural thing to them as Islam. So, for example, let me break this, and please let's discuss this, right? And let's be open about this. Marrying a cousin is not Islamic. Islam has allowed you to marry a cousin if you want to, but that's if you want to. But when parents then, try to enforce that in children, say, no, you've got to do it, because you're part of us and our forefathers have done it. And they introduce it in a way as if Islam has made them do this. Or for example, let's say, the norms and behaviors we've got in our societies. Sometimes, look, kids are not being told, or let's say, for example, you're not giving any pocket money to your children. Right? Any pocket money to your children. But you're using Islam to justify that. What justification have you got not to give your children small gifts now and again? To give them a little bit of pocket money. We're not talking about a huge amount of pocket money. Something the child can say, you know what, this is my possession, this is mine, and I'm going to use it. Now, I recently posted something on social media, and I saw some of the comments coming, and I was horrified. There's parents out there that have never given their children anything of pocket money or anything extra. There's one person who commented on my social media. I'm not going to tell you the post it is, right? But they just this week they commented and they said, my parents, I asked them for a smartphone. I was 12 years old. They said they're going to give it to me at 16. I asked them again at 14. They said they're definitely going to give me one. At 16, they never gave me one. They never gave me a smartphone. Then my sister gave me the smartphone. Right? But this person, this girl is growing up with a lot of resentment. Parents promised her that they're going to give her a smartphone at 16. Now, if you made that promise, please deliver your promise at 16. Don't play around. Right? What happened after that? She became 18 and the parents were holding back on so many other things, not giving her, which they were promising or whatever was happening in the house. One day, you know what she did? She broke every part of technology in the house. This week I've received this on my social media. She broke the television, she broke other, just to get back at her parents. It's an extreme case, I understand. But why did parents do that? Islam said, keep to your promises. Stick to your promises. Right? Why are you breaking your promise? So then after that, they called the police on her. She came home. She found the police wanted to talk to her because they said you vandalized the house and that you're a threat. And they even put a case on her. The parents said that she picked up a knife or something, right? Which she didn't. She didn't. And can you imagine the hate this child is going to have towards the parents, and then on the back of that towards Islam or towards, because they were most likely justifying all of this by saying that we're parents, we're in charge of you, Allah's told us to look after you. Okay, yes, Allah has told you to look after your children, but Allah never said to treat your children like this, to break promises. I want to give you a quick story right now, right? Which is, I went to South Africa. And this is the Miyaji family, right? This is Miyaji family. They've got a massive estate there in South Africa. So what happened is Maulana Abul Hasan al-Nadwi Sahib came there in South Africa many years. We're talking about many decades ago. Okay. Now what happened is there's a person who came to the door. And they wanted to get inside and see someone inside. So they asked, can you call your father to the door? He said, look, father's busy. So he said, look, see this watch of mine? he said, I'll give you this watch if you tell your father to come to the door and open it for me, and I want to come inside, right? So he went inside, got his father to come to the front door, and the father opened the door. Okay, he let him inside as a guest, but the father was busy, but he let him in the guest, and the child sat down, and Mullah Abul Hasan, I think he was either involved in this or he was part of this in some way. So what happened is the child kept on looking at the watch. The child kept on looking at the watch, and the child wouldn't move from the room. And the person of the house said, he asked the child, he said, come, better, he said, go. The child looked at the watch and, pointed towards it. And the parent said, what is it? And then he turned to the guest and he said, is there anything with your watch my child has got some concern with? And he said, oh, as a thing, I just said, like as a joke thing, I just said to the child, if he allows me, if he gets you to the door, then, I'll give him this watch. But I was just joking. And the father said, no. He said, in my house, I've never lied to my child. If you've said that, then you take that watch off now and you give it to my child. And he made him take that watch off and he made him give it to the child, because in his house, he's never got his children to experience lies. Now, when children experience lies in the house of someone, and especially if they come to the madrasa and they're seeing in your teaching environment, you're saying things as a teacher which you're not doing yourself, man, this is you finished. You're finished here. As in, the kids will respect you because they have to respect you, not because they want to respect you. There's a difference between children having to respect you and children wanting to respect you. The way to find out if a child really respects you is the day the child leaves the maktab, the next time they see you, do they go out their way to come and see you, or do they walk away from you because they saw you on the street somewhere? That's the crux of you knowing whether your students are really, they respect you because they have to or because they want to. Okay. So anyway, my point is don't create this kind of environment where the child is seeing that my ustad or my parents are practicing one kind of Islam and they're telling me another kind of Islam. Okay, the last one here you've got is the school. The school has an effect on the child. So please, that's why I said to you, like, please, with your children, engage with what's happening in their world, in all these areas outside, and inshallah you'll see another world emerging. And when they give you those things that are happening, talk to them. Get their doubts out of them, as in let them come to the surface. Then you can deal with the doubts or with the problems that they've got. We're going to move on to the next slide, inshallah. One of the things that we've got as a thing on the slide here is al-ahkam, or the rulings of Islam. They will alter with the consideration of time, place, and circumstances. تختلف باختلاف الأزمنة والأمكنة والأحوال. So look, we've given them a fiqh ruling. We've told them that you have to do this, you have to do that. But always remember that it depends on the time they're in, the moment they're in, the people are around, the circumstance that is. So things are going to change according. Rulings are not there to be set for every single circumstance they come to. And we've got to also understand that we've got to come with ease with our students with that. So yes, we teach them all the rulings, but don't make Islam something which is, just a bunch of do's and don'ts. Whenever you give children a bunch of do's and don'ts, children usually will see Islam as a problem. Because Islam tells me I can't do this, right? I remember once I was teaching in a certain place. I won't give you the name of this place. I was teaching in a certain place, and I noticed the kids were coming to the school with headphones where they were constantly listening to music. Right? Now, I didn't just jump down the throats. I asked, I said, can you tell me the reason why you listen to music constantly as you're coming to the madrasa? You know what he said? He said, because everything is haram in Islam. Now listen to his words. Because everything is haram in Islam. Now what actually happened is, before I came there was a teacher of Islam that was telling them this is bid'ah, this is shirk, this is haram, this is that, this is that, this is that. Everything was like, don't do this, don't do that, that's makruh, don't. When you bombard a person with so many things that's haram, you can't do this, you can't do that. What happens is sometimes children want to rebel. They want to break away from all of this. So yes, we do have harams, we do have don'ts. And I'm not asking you not to say all of that, but please approach the child in a way that gives meaning to their Islam. Now, I'm not going to say to you that everything we do in Islam has got a reason why or why we don't do it. For example, wudu. Why do I need to wash my face again when I've just let out some wind? Why do I need to do that? There's no explanation. It's Allah told us to do it, we just do it. So in those cases, we explain that. But where you've got a reason, please explain the reason. Okay? Anything, any hukum, anything that you've got. Even if you were to speak about, let's say, music or speak about something else, I'll give a reason. Why not? And those reasons will make sense because look, we're not living in Southeast Asia. We're not there. We're not in India. We're not in Bangladesh. We're not in Pakistan. We're not in Somalia. We're not in Egypt. You go to Egypt today, you go to Bangladesh today, the whole culture lives a certain way. You're blended into it. We're in the West. These children are made, they're actually molded and created to ask questions and to ask the most difficult questions. When they go to school, now I want you to understand this. This is one thing, right? Children go to a normal school, then children come to madrasah, right? They come to your maktab. At school, they've got loads of breaks. They're there for longer hours. Number one, they're there for longer hours. They're with you for shorter hours, much shorter hours. At home, they're there for longer hours where they've got the TV, the pad, all the games and whatnot, smartphones, all that, right? They're with you for 2 hours a day or for 1.5 hours a day, limited time. So you've got limited time. When they look at school, they see, in their world, they see freedom. They see enjoyment. They see trips. They see children, playing together in the playground. They see fun. They see engagement. They walk. Let's just talk about the lessons. When they walk in the lesson, there's things that have been cut out. There's things on the board. There's smart boards. There's so many ways to engage this child. All right. They come to madrasa, and if they see someone with a stern face, someone who's giving them do's and don'ts, someone who's telling them off, someone who hardly gives them a break, someone who always telling them why they never did something and so on, children will hate it. Automatic. If you don't understand, now I'm not asking you to suddenly make your Maktab or Madrasah a playground. I'm not asking you to do that. But please, cheer up. Cheer up. Like I'm not asking you to just mellow out so much. No. You need to get your teaching done. But at the same time, you need to make sure that you come across in a way that children don't feel that there's so much burden on them covering the contents that you're doing. How are you going to do that? One of the things I had, let me share this with you. If you're going to make children sit there for 1 hour with a Quran lesson, and every day they have to sit there and they have to read and read and read and read for 60 minutes every day, man, over a long period of time, that can be quite challenging for them, especially when they're young. So what did I do? I made a rule. And some parents didn't like it, but then they understood why I did it. It takes a few weeks to get this done. You're going to have to be prepared for this. What did I do? I said, when my class starts, whoever passes to the section I'm going to give you, whoever passes will have a break for the rest of the lesson. You will have a monitored break, so you go to one corner, you can bring whatever little games you've got, whoever else passes will join you, and you're going to play in my Quran lesson in that corner because you passed. Now, of course, I'm going to make sure I give them enough homework that I know that they're going to have to spend 2 to 3 hours at home, or 1 hour at least, or 2 hours at home for them to pass that. I know it's not going to be easy, right? So what happened next day is there's 6 or 7 of them wanting to come read to me straight away, right? So I'll choose them, and when they come to the front, okay, either I fail, I say you failed, or come back again for another test, or you pass. Now, once they pass, you know what? That kid is at the corner, he takes the little cards out, whatever he might have. They got the little cards with characters, whatever they're on, and he's waiting for another kid to pass. So both of them can play in the corner, they're looking at everyone else. And the thing is, look, that kid has used a lot of time at home to pass this, right? The rest of the kids who couldn't pass, I've got now more time to engage with them, right? So I've got extra time to give to those kids that are finding it hard to pass the lesson. Parents did question this and said, look, we've given you our child to teach him or her for 60-minute lesson, a Quran lesson, and you're making them sit at the corner. I said, look, listen to me. Did you notice your child come home and read for extra hours? They said, yes. I said, that's the only reason why. because they want to pass. They want to be known in the class that, I can pass. And they bring in their little games inside the maktab bags because they want to do it. Now, I've transformed the entire lesson. Now it's like, when we come to Ustad Hasan's class, I'm going to prepare for it, and I'm going to go in there with the mission that I want to pass in the first 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes. Then I've got 40 minutes break in the lesson. Now, of course, I'm going to bring the kids together towards the end. If I've got something to say to them, whatever, I can do that. And it's a monitored break, so it means that they can't bring balls they're going to throw around or marbles they're going to go across. It's got to be something where they can sit down and pass like that. Now, the thing is, it really transformed the entire lesson. Now, what that does is, the students who don't pass first time, I've got 3 times to listen to them now. Because those are passed first time, right? So I've got extra time now to focus on everyone else. And it's a win-win situation for everybody, right? So what I'm trying to say to you is that, look, make your classes something very engaging, or have these rewards or something that, kids want to come because they want to get those rewards. They want to pass. And you're the lovely teacher who gives them all of that. Why do you need to make it so boring for them? And don't tell me they're not engaging in Quran any more than they should, because instead of them reading 60 minutes in your class right now, just 60 minutes, they're now doing 120 minutes at home, which is far more than what they would have done in your class. Anyway, let's move on to the next slide. So dealing with with parents. So look, each child that we've got, okay, each child that we've got in front of us, this child needs to be the same in the eyes of the teacher. This is very important. Treat all your children equally. Now, I say this, look, don't always, never have a pet in the class. Teacher's pet. There's no such thing as a teacher's pet. One of the things I did when I was teaching is, the one that is not concentrating so much or not doing it. Why is it the case? Because he wants attention. So make him your register keeper. Let him take your register back to the admin. Let him be the one who brings you a cup of water, right? When you need one. But let him be the one who does something for you, because he wants to feel important. Give him some task. Now give another student some other task, or rotate it between them. If you look at Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he had different Sahaba doing different things. A certain Sahabi would always pick his shoes up, all right, or his sandals, and place his sandals for him. Another Sahabi would be the one who would keep his secrets. Another Sahabi, we know this amongst the Sahaba, right? So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was specific with his students to give them a certain task, and they would be known for this. So when you've got your students, give them different tasks, and especially the ones that don't behave well, treat them equally with the others. Why? Because a fair teacher means a loving and a lovable teacher. A teacher that looks at them, and thinks that, I don't want you in my class. Like, you never say that. You never say that to your children. But I tell you one thing, right? If I do a test right now with the people who have engaged in our session today, if any one of you was to write down right now, did you have, just write this down, write the name of the teachers in a list of the teachers that you never liked, and then write in another list the teachers' names that you liked. Right? Just do this. Just 3 teachers on one side, 3 teachers on another side, if you've got them, right? I'm sure everyone's got teachers they never liked, and I'm sure everyone's got teachers they like. Now, ask the question then, what is the reason you never liked them? Or what is the reason you like the teachers that you like? I've done this in real teacher trainings up and down the country. The reasons why people like teachers is never, the top quality is never because they were the most knowledgeable. I've done this test over and over again. It's not because they were the most educational, most comprehensive, the deepest research that he had. None of that. Okay? It's always, he was kind. He was or she was gentle. They were understanding. They related to me. They were someone. It's always to do with this kind, gentle, merciful, someone who was there to listen to me, appreciated what I did, or was asking me how I was. Those kind of things, right? Now let's flip this over. You're a teacher right now. What do you think your students are going to remember you for? That's the big question. What are your students going to remember you for in 7 years' time, in 8 years' time? If you were to be honest and open right now and give a blank sheet of paper to all your students and say, you know, and I've done this. I'm telling you right now, many teachers are not ready to do this because I'm not going to say I'm a perfect teacher, straight up. I've learned over the years. The reason why I'm speaking like this is because I've made my fair share of mistakes. Every teacher will make their fair share of mistakes. And as a person who's teaching children, if you dare do this, then please do this, because I did this several times. What I did is I gave blank sheets of paper to all my students. I told them, bring it back to me tomorrow. You can even type it out. You can type your things out. So I don't know the handwriting, okay? You can write whatever you like about me, good and bad. But you've got one A4 paper to fill in. You can put 2 lines, 1 sentence, 1 paragraph, or you can fill the whole A4 paper up, right? And that's your thing for tomorrow. When they bring it, they all fold it and place it in one place so that I collect all of them. And I'm not going to ever read these out in the class. I'm never going to discuss this, but I'll take them away at the end of the lesson. And you know what? You learn a lot from those sheets. You learn a lot. All those horrible things they wanted to say to you as you being a bad teacher because you're this, you're that. You know what? This is the chance to read everything. You're looking in the mirror. And you know, these are things that you can't escape. These are truthful things. And some of them, okay, you can tell if somebody's just being a bit of a nuisance, but 99% of the time you're going to get information about you which is true, good and bad. And you know what I used to do every year? I used to improve through those things I used to get. So I used to collect the information. I'd go back and have a good read, have a good reflection, sometimes laugh, sometimes say, Ya Allah, right? You know, how have I come across to my students, and then improve and change. Because the main idea is I'd never go back and have a go at them, never say to them, you know, oh my God, some of you have written this about me, how dare you? None of that. I just digested it, swallowed my saliva inside and said, you know what, I'm going to improve. And every other year I used to do this. I've done this in the school I've taught, I've done this in the Maktab and Madrasah I've taught. And you know what it does? It makes you think, you know what, I'm out of line here, right? I need to change. I need to change my ways. I need to change this, that. So I'm going to ask all teachers, please, if you got the guts, right, you dare, please do it. It's a really good way of knowing where you are, because you know the good things you've done, they'll come out, but the bad things you're doing and the way you come across, sometimes you might not agree, that's fine, but at least you got the feedback. Okay, so let's move on to so we've got, look here on this slide. It says teachers need to find the right techniques to deal with each parent so the student benefits the most from the short time they have in Maktab. So this is about parents' engagement, okay? Now, parents, on the left-hand side, you can see some parents are going to be professional, some are going to be practicing, some are going to be non-practicing, right? Some are just going to focus on Quran reading, some are going to be not interested at all. What I found is you're going to get all this mix of parents. In every year you're engaging with your child, and every single child has got a different parent that ends up in one of these different areas, okay? So what do? And I've covered some of this before, which is you've got to say that this child is more important to me than the parents. If I can get the parents to engage, because some of them who are practicing and they really want their children to learn, they're going to be forthcoming. Some others are taking a back seat and some others are absent. You're never going to get hold of them. I will say to you that, look, if you care about the child, if you care about the ummah, then work on the child. Right? Try and get the parents to engage, but if you can't get them to engage, one great alim said to me once, because I was talking to him about making change in the society. This was Maulana Zahid Rashid from Pakistan. He was in the country, and I asked him once, I said, look, Maulana, we're trying to get the community to change. And he said a wonderful comment. This was in year 2002. He said to me, and I've always stuck to that. I said, you know what Maulana has said there, spot on, the right thing that I needed to hear. He said to me, अगर ये लोग जो बड़े हैं इनको आप तब्दील नहीं कर सकते तो आप छोटे पर आप focus करें. So he said, if those elders, you think that you can't make change in them, then just put your concentration on the youngsters, on their children. He goes, if you can make change in the youngsters, when they grow up, they're the adults that you wanted to change. right? And this is and anyone who's teaching should know this, that, you know what, those parents are not engaging with me, but you know what, inshallah, I'm going to get the children to engage, and then when they become adults, I've got them engaged. As in, I've got a parent of a level of a parent engaged, which is the child that you're talking to right now, right? You probably missed the boat or missed the train for their parents, but you haven't missed the train for this child that is in front of you. Okay, so keep that in mind. And it doesn't matter where they come from, try and engage them, try and engage with them, but please understand that their parents, look, they've got their own problems. Right? A lot of them, if you talk to those parents, they've got lives that have also got many stories. SubhanAllah, I was talking to one woman who was in the masjid. She's a hijabi. She used to come to my adult halaqah lessons. And one day she spoke to me, right, because I was wondering, look, her child started to become slightly practicing because he came to those halaqas, you know, and he was a bit messed up. Right? I'm using the word messed up as in like not that practicing. I mean, I really had a good relationship with him, good friendship with him. But one day I wanted to find out what happened here. Like, what is it? This family seems a bit, you know, off the straight and narrow. And then she shared her story with me. And when I heard her story, I can't go through the full thing right now. But you know what? Her father was working in Saudi Arabia. Her father had her going from country to country as a little kid. She was on a ship going from one country to another country when she was young. There were so many things that she saw on the ship, things that would be horrific to children to witness. There was some form of abuse and other things that came across as well. And then she grew through all of that. She grew with her family disowning her. She also had a lot of problems with her families. Her father, you know, back in Pakistan with land and problems and families. There's so much that happened. I'm not getting into this, but when you hear the entire story and then you stop there and you breathe in, you breathe out, and you think, you know what, I get it now. I get why this sister has got so much problems that she's walking with, and her child has ended up the way, because she was a single mother bringing up this child. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide. Teaching methods. So, look, the Prophet ﷺ, you know, this is a hadith that we should bear in mind, which is Rasulullah ﷺ came to us, and he says in his own words, Allah did not send me to be harsh or cause harm, but He has sent me to teach and make things easy. Okay, let's be approachable to our students. As I said to you earlier, you can see at the bottom of the slides, training.safrapublications.org, and you'll see prophetic teaching methods. You'll see a lot that's been mentioned there. There's 12 hours of free training available for anybody who wants to go there and to get a lot more than what I can cover in this short session here. But the key to this is this, okay? And somebody said this beautifully. You know when sometimes we engage with people outside there as imams, as people who are, whether ulama, imams, teachers, okay? Because some people listen to this, you're not an alim, you're not an alima, but you're a teacher, okay? Somebody said this wonderfully, this scholar said this wonderfully, and he said, when we engage in any setting that we're engaging with, there's two ways of doing it. There's my way of doing it, and there's a prophetic way of doing it. Whenever I do my way, I should always think, is it the prophetic way? If it meets the prophetic way of dealing with this issue, then inshallah there will not be any problems. But if it's my way, then, and it's not the prophetic way, then you're going to have some form of problems coming your way, right? So sometimes, you want to tell someone, even telling someone off, there's a sunnah way of doing it. There's many sunnahs there. One is like Rasulullah wanted to tell the Sahaba off, and they're all sitting there. And he just saw yesterday somebody cheating in the marketplaces, giving, dates that are dry at the price of dates that are fresh and ripe. So Rasulullah saw this, that the man put ripe dates on the top, dry dates underneath, and when he's scooping it all up, he's taking both, right? The dry and the wet ones, and putting them, or the fresh ones, putting them in the person's bag and then selling them off. This person must have come to the Prophet ﷺ and he said to the Prophet, look, I've been cheated in the marketplace because I paid a high price for the fresh dates, but I got some dry, some fresh. What did the Prophet ﷺ do? He stood up, sat amongst them, and he said, "Man ghasha falaysa minna." He said, "Whoever cheats is not from us." And you could see that the Prophet ﷺ is upset when he's saying this. You could see that he's not very happy, But he didn't target that man who's sitting in his crowd right now and say, you're the one who's cheated, you're the one, there's no such thing in the Sunnah of the Prophet in doing that. So, even if you want to tell somebody off, it's privately. Even if he's going to tell someone off, and if it's very serious, he still looked for a good excuse of something good they've done in the past. Like, for example, we've got that famous hadith about Hatib bin Balta'a, right? Who gave away the secret that the Prophet ﷺ is about to invade Makkah al-Mukarramah, who sent a secret letter, who was about to send a secret letter, and that would have given the whole of Makkah people, that would have put them at preparation with war. Prophet ﷺ wanted to come secretly, and he wanted to take them by surprise, but not to harm anyone, but he wanted to just secure the city and then take control over the city of Makkah. Now that letter got caught. Rasulullah was told by wahi, by Allah's inspiration, that there's a letter going out. And Sayyidina Ali radiallahu anhu, he caught the woman with that letter and he brought it back. And then he found out that it was from Hatib bin Balta'a. So the Prophet then, in a gathering, saying to Hatib, why did you do this? Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anhu stood up and he said, Messenger of Allah, give me permission, I'll behead this person, right? What did the Prophet say at that time? Because it was a very serious matter. This was a matter of treason. This is a matter of putting the whole of the Medina people at risk. Now the Prophet ﷺ, even though he wasn't going to accept Umar radiallahu anhu's proposal, he wasn't going to accept that. Prophet ﷺ could have said other words to Hatib, put him down, but he didn't. At that moment he said, "Oh Umar, Hatib is a Badri Sahabi. Maybe Allah has forgiven all of his sins just because he was part of the people of Battle of Badr." Now look, at that moment he still found a positive thing, a remark to say about this person who's committed treason in Medina Munawwara. Right? So let's take examples of this, of still remembering, even though you've got a problem with this, with the person, you've got a problem with them. You can't forget the good they've done in the past. The Quran says about this. Let's say there's a husband and wife and they've had problems. Allah says, فَإِنْ أَطَعْنَكُمْ فَلَا تَبْغُوا إِلَيْهِنَّ سَبِيلًا. If they've now come back to the line of obedience, don't try and still bring up past wrongs they've done and target them with it. Don't do that. Right? So it's a sunnah method that we need to learn. Anyway, move on to the next slide. One of the things I always tell my staff is, we all need to broaden our own knowledge. Okay, so what this means is that I can only go as far as what I've read and what I've gained from other ulama. Okay, so what happens here often is that our own staff, or let's say the staff of your academy, your place, or you as a teacher, you've read the book you're going to teach, but you haven't gone beyond that. The subject matter that you've got, please go beyond that and read a lot more out there and bring that to your knowledge, because your students can see what's in the book that you're about to teach, but you should be prepared with much more than that, so that you can engage in other things that are related to the book if necessary. Okay, and we can see that Imam Shafi rahimahullah on the slide, as you've seen, he says, وَإِذَا مَزَّدْتُ عِلْمًا زَادَنِي عِلْمًا بِجَهْلِ. So the more I learn from my ignorance. Meaning that what I learned today, it shows me that I never knew it yesterday, which shows that yesterday I was ignorant of this particular knowledge that I've just gained. Moving on to the next slide, we've got to prepare for a changing world. Okay. So this changing world, let's just look at it, because some of this stuff I've covered, some I haven't. So let's just go around from again to the top right-hand corner. Atheism. Atheism has been there for a very long time. It is one of the fundamental kufr foundations out there. Kafaru, every time the Quran covers atheism in its essence. And we've got to prepare them for the new forms of atheism that are going to come in the future. Screen time addiction, especially with lockdown that we had, screen time addiction with children has gone sky high, and we need to be able to prepare for this. Political landscape is always changing, right? Government laws are changing. We need to be prepared for this. And at school, certain laws they've made 2019, 2020 are affecting them in 2021. Laws they made in 2015 are affecting them. So we need to be prepared for that. Artificial intelligence and AI programming that is out there, again, is having a big effect on the on their engagement with social media, with even the YouTube videos that they're being prompted to watch and so on. And even generally, the artificial intelligence in society is going to affect the way we do things. So please move up with learning. The Sunday schools that some might have, okay, or a short session you might have on a weekly basis, it might not be enough to get the kids to have a proper engagement in that. So always, think beyond that. With that, we want to really get these children to become part of our community, our religion in a greater sense. You've got liberalism that is around there. That is constantly, shifting. It's shifting. Liberalism became super liberalism. Super liberalism becomes super liberalism. Okay, and then yesterday's liberalism seems to be some kind of conservatism or orthodox, right? So it's always shifting. But please, let's prepare for this world. Family dynamics. Okay, how things are happening right now. We know that people out there. Look, people are not even wanting to get married now because the freedom they think they've got, which is not really freedom for them, is actually affecting the way they choose to live as a family. The next one, regulation and supplementary education. Now, we might have that coming down to the to the madrasas, the masjids. So let us be ready for that. That might be coming down our way. So let's move to the next slide. That says, look, here is a big thing that I want teachers to take away, which is, look, knowledge is one thing, hikmah is another thing. Okay. We've been told in the Quran, it says, this is my way. I call people to Allah with full perception, both I and my followers, which means that we are well aware of exactly the direction we're moving in. This is the difference between ilm and hikmah. See, what is the difference between ilm and hikmah? Ilm is knowledge of what to do, what not to do. But hikmah, wisdom, is something that tells you when to apply that knowledge, where to apply that knowledge, how much of that knowledge to apply, how much not to apply, what setting to apply part of it, what setting to stop and say, well, no, I need to think here that it's not working for me, so I need to apply something else. So ilm, if you look at knowledge to itself, it will always give you that straight do's and don'ts, whereas hikmah is more broader. Hikmah gives you the acumen to understand that, okay, here's where I don't do this, here's where I do it. For example, we all know there are moments to speak, there are moments not to speak. Ilm will tell you, speak, tell everybody this, tell everybody the truth. Hikmah teaches you, I need to speak the truth, but there's a place I should stay quiet. Because when I speak the truth there, although it's written, like the hadith is there, for example, the best struggle anyone can come up with is, or the best jihad, the Prophet said, is to speak the truth in front of an oppressing ruler. Now, is it for everyone? No, it's not. Not every man can do that, because you've got to take in consideration what might happen to you, what might happen to your family, what might happen to your community, what might happen to every person who's of your mentality. What will this ruler do to you and everybody else that's connected to you, right? So you've got to take all that in consideration and then say, do I still speak that truth right now, or should I do it at a later time? We're not saying you give up, because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, then look, this is a hikmah. If you can't change evil with your hands, he said, then with your tongue. If you can't change it with your tongue, then with your heart. What did that mean? That means that you make the intention that I'm not going to do it now, but I'll do it for a later time. But that's hikmah. That's knowing when not. We're not asking anybody to compromise on Islam, but we're asking people to be wise about how they go about practicing religion. And if you look on the next slide, you'll see that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam didn't just come with teaching people about the book, the knowledge of the book, and reciting the verses, but he says clearly there, he came with hikmah, which is wisdom, what we covered, and now a new thing, which is spirituality. So knowledge on its own is good, but without the spirituality of the knowledge, it's something that is just a tree without fruits. So, for example, if I'm doing my salah, if I'm doing my hajj, if I'm paying my zakah, if I'm fasting Ramadan, and all of this ends up with me just tick boxing everything, then that's not what Islam was about. I need to find my ruh connects with Allah. So during Ramadan, I should be aware that Allah is watching me. Taqwa, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ in Surah Baqarah, ayah number 183, Allah Azza wa Jal said, the whole purpose of fasting is tattaqun, right? So that you're aware of Allah. In the Hajj ayah in Surah Baqarah, Allah said, when He said, Al-Hajju Ashuru Ma'lumat, straight away after that, Allah said, prepare for Hajj, وَخَيْرُ الزَّادِ التَّقْوَى. From all the luggage that you're going to take with you to Hajj, make sure you don't forget the belonging and the possession of taqwa, of awareness of Allah Azza wa Jal. So most of these things we're doing, we have to have spirituality and the mind connected to Allah Azza wa Jal. We're going to move on to the next slide, and this is where we come to the, after this we're going to open up to questions and so on. So what next? Review the notes from this training, and again I'm going to ask you to go to the safapublications.org and see the training that we've got on there. I'm going to also add another thing, which is after this session, everyone here will get a feedback form that will be emailed to them. Please engage in giving me feedback. We want to know how to improve this session that we've had today. And also, we're going to have another session on this. So there's another session, inshallah, in 2022 that we're planning based on your feedback. So please give us your feedback. Give us also things that you wanted us to have covered in this, which we haven't covered. And inshallah, if you give your feedback, then we can get back to you, inshallah, and we can plan for our 2022 session, inshallah. Observe and skill Shaykh to share the best practices between other teachers in your institution. So we're going to ask you to please, if one teacher has got one great idea, please always share it with others. I've had this practice in my academy, and we have set certain groups of teachers that always are sharing their knowledge with one another. If a teacher has covered year 3 book, they're always sharing it with others. Another teacher is starting year 3 book, then they're always going to the senior teacher and asking them, and the teacher will say, well, this is my preparation, this is how I deliver these lessons. So it always helps. Okay, don't forget also, for all our books and so on in separate publications, we've got the teacher's guides, right? Did you want to add something else?
On your website, don't you have something, a teacher's portal as well?
Yeah, we've got a teacher's portal, so there's extra information for teacher's portal. I mean, there's so much on there. We've also got the entire Qaida, the whole of Juz' Amma, the whole of the Tajweed book recited with professional recording out there. On YouTube, if you go to Safar Publications, you'll see a whole list of recitations of every section of the books that we've got that are for recitation read out. Okay. Continue learning, take benefit of any opportunities, new skills, developing ourselves and so on. And the final thing we're going to cover is, go to lessons prepared, which I've already said. Preparation is key. If we prepare for our lessons, we can seriously, make a difference to the children. Please don't think that these lessons should be just reading out the book. The worst thing you can do is to go into lessons and say, I'm just going to read out everything. So, they read out, Yusuf alayhi salatu salam, his brothers left him in the well. Did you guys understand that? Do you guys understand that? I mean, what is there hard to understand about that? Right? We know what a well is. We know they left him there for the night. Okay, let's go to the next section. Yusuf alayhi salatu salam was left there for the full night. Guys, you understood that? For the full night? I mean, honestly, it's such a boring lesson. They could have just sat home and read the thing themselves. Why not? Go to safapublications.org. You'll see teacher training on how to tell stories. Okay? How to tell stories. How do you make the kids, how do you tell them a story without looking in the book? All the training is there, inshallah. So anyway, let's now move on to Q&A.
Okay, so one of the questions was, how do you accommodate for students with autism, ADHD, and dyslexia, etc.?
Okay, so with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, how do you engage them with that? Look, these are huge, challenging areas. Each one requires for you to know what kind of difficulty that you're facing. And how do you overcome that? Every single area has got so much to learn, because there's not one type of ADHD, there's not one type of autism out there, dyslexia, there's many different types of dyslexia. So what is it that they have problem with now? Each child is now going to have an exemption with the way that you teach. If you've got those children in your academy, in your setting, you have to make exemptions for them. So the child with autism or child with dyslexia, they can't be expected to read at everyone else's level. You're going to have to make them read slower and with more mistakes, but pass them, give them compensate them for the disadvantages that they've got. Same with autism, ADHD. If they can't sit in your lesson, they're fidgety, whatever, give them a ball, give them a sponge ball, give them other things, give them something to concentrate on, give them more time that they can sit, maybe in an area where they don't distract others, but they're able to maybe stretch their legs, they're able to sit with their back against the wall, they're able to sit on a chair maybe, right? Able to, have more of something that breaks their focus every 5 minutes. There's so much that I can cover here, but I don't want to go into all of this because these are very specific. You need to study what the area of difficulty it is that you're dealing with, and then you need to look at, everything's available out there really, but you need to talk to those who've got experience of how to deal with these students.
And there's two questions that are very similar, so I'll ask them both together. One of them is, if you speak to your children in a tone your language down, speak in their language, then how can you do that without them, whilst maintaining your respect or the teacher's respect at the same time? And the second question is how do you achieve kindness and gentleness with your students without your students thinking you're too soft and taking advantage of you?
Okay, so look, the first part of your question, the first question that you asked, I did say very clearly that you're not going to make that your norm. You just do that once or twice. Just that I said, look, what's up, fam? Just once. You just said it once. It's not your language. It's not something that you're always using. So please make sure that you don't get the wrong end of the stick with this. I'm not asking you to always talk to them like that because then you lose your respect. This was one way of getting them engaged. And the second thing is that you've got to have your own principles and you've got to stick by them. You can't go into this lesson just being more lenient or more strict and more strict. You've got to have your balance. And I always say this, if you're a fair teacher with your rules and you apply them across the board, so you apply them across everybody, and you're fair and you're firm with your rules, they'll all respect you. You'll never lose your respect. But when I ever go and teach a lesson, my first thing I tell all my staff is never start a lesson with, the softest and the most gentlest way. Don't start off like that. Start off being a person who's serious, who's walking the lesson, because no one's going to mess around in your first lesson, because nobody has sussed you out yet. Always remember that. They're always going to stay quiet for the first few lessons because they haven't sussed you out, but they're going to test you because you're the cat, they're the mice, right? And if you turn into a cat that wants to catch mice, then they'll play tricks with you. But if you turn into a cat that says, okay, I'm not here to cut you out, but I want you to stay in your little zones, but let's now get our lesson done. We don't have this cat and mouse chase. They'll respect you for it. So be firm, be fair with all of them, establish your rules, and then what you do is on the 3rd week, 4th week, 6th week, 9th week, then one day you go a little bit loose and be a bit more gentle. Then they say, oh, they get a relief. That teacher was very, he's very on the, being somebody who's very firm with all the rules and they're not being loose and easygoing with us, but then they become easy. That becomes your exception. So now and again, whenever you want, you can become easy with them, but then you go back to your norm, which is you're firm with your rules and so on and so forth. So always bear that in mind. So that's how it should be. If you go in as liberal, as loose, as chill out, as all that, then they start misbehaving. Then you're trying to be strict with them. They'll say, we know who you are. You're that person who, is easy with us, easygoing with us. So we're not going this. Your strictness becomes the exception then. They'll wait for you to calm down, then they'll again misbehave because they know you're easygoing.
Those attendees who have asked questions earlier on in the session and that haven't been asked yet, please ask again and inshallah I'll read them out. Shaykh, there are another 2 questions which are similar. I'll put them both together. One is, how do you teach a student who has some doubts about Islam? And the other question is, how do you respond to a student who's in primary years asking why we can't be gay? It's a difficult question to answer as as schools are teaching this now.
So look, with doubts, there's so many doubts. You can go on and on with so many doubts, and there's always new doubts that are coming out every year. So first is to understand the kind of doubt they have. And then to say to yourself, how do I then respond to that doubt? The very least you should do is to make them walk away knowing that the reason why they got doubts is because they're a believer. That's the very least you should do. Because when the Sahaba came to the Prophet ﷺ, it's a hadith of Muslim, Sahih Muslim, Rasulullah ﷺ, they said to him, Messenger of Allah, we find certain thoughts, we experience certain thoughts within ourselves that we'd rather burn to ashes than to utter those doubts to you. And these are Sahaba, these are not your ordinary average person somewhere else living in the 20th century. These are Sahaba in the company of the Prophet ﷺ. So the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, do you fight those thoughts? Do you find yourselves fighting those thoughts? They said, yes. He said, وَذَلِكَ ذَلِكَ مَحْضُ الْإِيمَانِ. He said, then that is pure belief, meaning that you are full with belief. And like a scholar said, he said, like a thief will only go to a house to steal something where there's valuables. A thief doesn't go to an empty house to steal. So the same way, a shaitan will only come to you and give you doubts if you've got something valuable of iman inside there. So let them at least walk away with that. Second is, with their particular doubt, you need to now know how to deal with it. Now, I'm going to be straight up with you. Please go out there and speak to scholars, speak to shuyukh, speak to people who know more than you and gather that information. Speak to several if you have to. Gather all their different ways of answering this question and then come to your student and answer that question. Don't waffle, don't shut them down, and don't give them an answer that really doesn't have any value, because they'll see straight through you when you do that. Okay? If you're not confident enough to answer the question, send them to a senior person to ask them directly. But don't mess it up. As in, a lot of students will never challenge you, will never say anything to you with your answer that you've given. But you know what? The day they find a rubbish answer you've given them that doesn't clear their doubt, you've lost them. They'll probably become half atheist at that time. And when they grow up, they'll become full atheist. You've lost them. So make sure that you give them the answer. Now, where do you go for those answers? Like I said to you, shuyukhs and imams and so on. There's a brother, his name is Fadl Soliman, that's how FADEL SOLIMAN, I think that's how you spell it, on YouTube. Look, he might have whatever background he's got, but he's actually tried to go through every single doubt on his YouTube channel. And you know what? It's a source for you if you want to gather some information from there. You don't have to even reference him. But look, this is an individual who's tried his best to go head on with every doubt that our students are facing out there and to give an answer to that. So try and answer. Yes, you want to add on?
In your Safar publications textbooks, do you not have lessons on belief in Allah and the truth of Islam and justice and grace and things?
Well, if you come to the Safar publications, we've tackled a lot of this stuff, and you've got to really read the books to see what we've done. So we've got, just to show you one of our books right now. We've got this is book number 8 that just come out last month. And just to see what's it's taken 3 years to put this book together. Now in here, science, scientism, evolution, talking about doubts, talking about proving the existence of God, from like the arguments we've had 1400 years ago to modern day arguments. We've covered that in there, right? And there's book 7, book 6 that also prepare for you for much of this. So even book 7 that we've got does head on again, talking about beliefs, talking about the existence of God, talking about how to prove that your Islam is right. Right? How do you do that? How do you make a student know that my Islam, compared to all the Hinduism out there, Sikhism out there, Judaism out there, Christianity out there, every other big religion out there, how do I know that my one is the truth? Right? So look at our book 7. You'll find a whole section with many areas of trying to prove the validity of Islam to them from our sources, right? And from logical thoughts and ideas. Okay. And much of where the doubts will come, we've actually tackling that from the roots. So again, I'm going to ask you to get, at least engage yourself in finding out, reaching out to others. You've got our books, but look, there are many syllabi out there. people are going to have, no problem. But if you're going to tackle someone with doubts, make sure you've got a thorough answer. Now, let me give you one example. I've dealt with many students in the past, like they come with different doubts, all right? But each one that comes to you with something, you've got to understand, first of all, they've heard it from somewhere. So please try and get to the source. What have they heard? What have they read? Who did they get it of? What's that source? Most of it might be the internet or someone else they heard it of. Now get that in front of you. So for example, one of the doubts one child said to me once was, how do we know that God created all of this? How do we actually know? So there's one answer, right? The one answer, which is again, if you can relate it to science, if you can, you really catch these kids. So my answer is this. Let's look at the human structure, all right? The human DNA. Do you know that the modern world scientists have seen a massive similarity between the way the human has been created, the way all animals have been created? There's a DNA that follows a similar structure. Like for example, most animals, they're going to have something to see. They've got an eye, or they've got eyes to see. They've got a smelling compound. They've got a taste. They've got feelings just like us. They've got cells in their bodies. They've got molecules, whatever, in their bodies. Most animals have got bone structure in the body. And if you go to the DNA, you'll see a massive similarity with humans. Okay, not just that. They've even found there's DNA in plants and trees, okay? And they're now discovering a massive similarity of how those things function and they grow, just as a human has a growth. So how does a tree die, right? What is that thing that makes the tree die? What's that point? Now, there's research out there, for example, you cut a tree, and obviously we know that there's rings in a tree that tell you how old the tree is. But do you know that if you were to cut through the spine of a human being, which they've done tests in laboratories, that there's exactly the same thing. There's rings within that spine that has got, those rings tell you how old the human is. Amazing, right? Now, the thing is, at the least, it points to one creator for all this that's around us, at the least. Now, the atheists can come to the level of saying we don't know if it's God. But the least you have to accept from all these studies is it's one creator, or there's one great intelligence behind this. Then you can move further, which is, for example, when you look at one of the beautiful things Allah said in the Holy Quran, which is سَنُرِيهِمْ آيَاتِنَا فِي الْآفَاقِ وَفِي أَنفُسِهِمْ حَتَّى يَتَبَيَّنَ لَهُمْ أَنَّهُ الْحَقُّ. That we will show them the signs in the cosmos, we'll show them the signs within human beings, and then they'll be convinced that this is the truth. Now, let's just look at the orbit of the stars. Let's look at the complexity of what Allah's created out there. Now, how one person has beautifully put it, right? So we're saying that we have a wonderful system out there where no planet clashes with another planet, that there's another big bang out there, or clashes of planets or comets that are hitting the earth in a way that the earth is now a threat of blowing up or whatever. So there's a perfect system going out, and the millions and billions of stars out there, there's galaxies, the Milky Way is out there. Okay, there's a perfect system. And then when you look inside the body, human body, they're going deeper and deeper. They've cracked the gene code. They've saw that, okay, there's this many forms of genes inside the human being. There's this many 22 million, whatever it is, right? Then they're going inside each one. They're going further and further and further. There's a huge world within ourselves, and it's just getting deeper and deeper. In fact, the latest studies on the oceans are showing that humans haven't even probably discovered not even 10 to 30% of the ocean. There's a 70 to 90% of the ocean that we haven't discovered. David Attenborough and his team have gone to create the latest cameras that can go to the depth of the oceans. You know what? They've come up with things that the human race has never ever experienced. This is just in the last 10 years. And that's just, again, touching the tip of the iceberg. Now, are we going to now say, with all of this around us, and we can't see beautiful intelligence, beautiful design, structure that Allah has given? And look, you can go on and on. And then one of the ways, and I will say this, look, if you go to YouTube, just on this one thing, I've got an entire lecture about, like, I think it's something around that we need answers from God, right? We need answers from God. If you type that in YouTube, you'll find from the Quran, I've tried to give you many, many different answers of us understanding, much of our doubts that comes up. But that's not going to cover all of it. We have huge specific doubts that come, and those specific doubts need to be taken head on with new answers that maybe the world hasn't given beforehand. Okay, go to the next, last question. I'm okay. You can carry on.
Okay, there's quite a lot of questions to go through. One of them is if the child is an introvert and not ready to befriend the teacher, how can we engage with her?
Look, introverts are interesting people. Okay, extroverts are also, like, extroverts are going to always speak to you, they're going to speak their mind and so on. Introverts, on the other hand, might not be speaking to you, but they're absorbing a lot. They're absorbing a lot. And they say empty vessels make the most noise, which is that the introverts, they might be sitting there quietly, but they're processing a lot of information. See, how extroverts work is that they bounce off their understanding with the external world. So they're getting a feeling of how everybody else is thinking externally in that room, and then crossing that with the information they've got in their heads. Introverts, on the other hand, are taking the information and now they're internalizing it. So there's all sorts of information that's from another whole world of things they've got inside their heads, and they're bouncing it off that internal world. It's another way of looking at the world, all right? Now, on the surface of it, an extrovert is engaging with you, he's with you, but don't ever think an introvert is not with you. Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was an introvert. Clear in the ahad, he was an introvert. Umar radiallahu anhu seems like an extrovert from how he was engaging with the Sahaba later on. But Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, from all the gatherings we get, he was an introvert. He was a super introvert. But who was more closer to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? It was Sayyidina Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, right? How? Because Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu is not just sitting there, he's absorbing a lot. In fact, where later on Umar radiallahu anhu, he managed, his mind never reached, Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu reached that part. And look at the death of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at the many incidents that happened in their times when they were, when Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was a Khalifa. Right? And Umar radiallahu anhu just stopped in his tracks and he looked at him for, again, he's gone ahead of me. So look, it's not that they're not engaging with you, they're fully connected with you. All your introverts in your class that are all engaged with you. Now, if you want to find out if they're just sitting there and daydreaming, you better engage them. You have to engage them. You can't expect them to ask you questions. Introverts will never open their mouths unless you make them open their mouths. So one thing I do in my lessons is, and this is a beautiful way of getting everyone engaged, is every time you're delivering a lesson, always ask questions to random students about something that you just said. So let's say the lesson's been going on for 15 minutes. Suddenly you say, Ishaq, what did I say about that? Straight away. Now, they're always alert. This happened when I was once, I came across one teacher once, and you know what, he had this method. In his lesson, you had to be sharp and alert from beginning to end, because any moment he'll have any student that he's going to ask any question based on what he just covered in the last few minutes, in the last hour, in the last half an hour, whatever. So you have to keep it, because all of a sudden he's going to say, Hasan, what did I just say? What did I say like 15 minutes ago on that thing? What did I say? And if you can't answer, he's going to make you repeat it. He's going to make you engage. And then you think, oh my God, for the next one, I better be ready. Like the next question that he's going to ask me now. If you do that with the students, you've got all of them engaged. So in terms of engagement, you're never going to see an introvert open their mouths unless you make them open their mouths. So that's up to you, how you engage them. Extroverts, even when you want them to stay quiet, they're going to open their mouths. But that doesn't tell you anything about their level of engagement. Sometimes extroverts want to open their mouths because it's just their character. It's the inside that wants to say something, because of whatever reason it is. Okay, because they're feeling that the setting they're in is not going to be complete unless they engage with you, unless they ask you a question. Okay, so let's go to the next thing.
Next one, how much focus should be put on the makharij of letters for students aged 4 to 7?
Again, look, about the makharij of the lessons, age 4 to 7, please go to our teacher training, right? Half of tajweed, if not more of that, is all in makharij. Okay, if you're going to spend 2 months just on makharij, if you're going to spend 6 months, I'm going to give you 2 thumbs up. You better tell parents about this. You better prepare the students about this. You better tell them they're not going to shift from the first page of the alphabets, you know, for a few months. You better tell everyone this, because look, this is the most important part of your whole of everything they're going to do for the next 12 years with you. If you can get this right, you've got most of the Quran right. Okay, so just getting through the alphabet with them saying ha, not saying ha, not saying any other way of saying it, saying ra, not saying ra or wa with a vowel sound, right? You've got to, and again, I can't cover this in this thing. Please, there's teacher training on publications.org. Go over there. There's all this training of how to get to do the makharij. Now, the question is, how much importance would you put in? A lot of importance. If you can get all students to say every single letter by saying ha, hi, hu, dha, dhi, dhu, with the right pronunciation coming out perfectly with the dhamma, fatha, kasra. If you can go further, and our qaida has actually, the Safar qaida has got all of this inside, and teacher training is with it as well. We've even got every single part of this pronounced as well on YouTube videos that we've got out there. So if they can say right? Every single they can say and every single one can be pronounced properly. You know what? Your tajweed, you've got 80% of tajweed done now. The rest of it is like lengths of, when they should do mudud, how they should join, the speed of their recitation, few gunnas and few other mads and so on. That's it. Otherwise, most of your tajweed is done in the makharij, in the pronunciation of letters. So please spend as much time as you can. And one of the greatest obstacles you're going to find here are parents. Because parents want to know how quickly the students are going to finish Quran. One of the things I've always said, and we say this in our induction, is your child will never finish the entire Quran with us, but your child will finish the Quran several times before they leave our maktab. Right? So one of the things that we've had most of these maktabs and madrasas do is that their target becomes that they want to finish the Quran. The day they finish the Quran, there's no one more happier than the kid. Because he's going to leave your maktab. He's going to leave your madrasa. He's going to leave your school. Why? Because that was the target the parents set, you said, everyone said, right? So he's seeing that I finished my Quran, that Quran is not going to go to the shelf, and he's going to leave your maktab. That's a real disaster. What we do is that we teach more tajweed. Once they learn tajweed, we slowly make them independent reciters. Once they're independent reciters, they will do at least 1 khatam of the Quran every year, but they'll still be in our maktab, because we made the objective tajweed. We never made the objective finishing the Quran. Okay, you can go to the next.
How can we apply the points discussed today for online teaching? What should we be wary of, and how to deal with any potential issues?
Online teaching is emergency teaching. Online teaching, straight up, is emergency teaching. This is where you've had to compensate for the people who can't reach you on site. These are people who are living in remote places, people who haven't got the physical means to get to you. Therefore, you've got online training, online teaching. Teaching should never be done without suhbah, without companionship. Companionship is key to changing a person's life. Companionship never can happen online. Companionship is always in real life. There's studies being done, and these are new studies that are coming out now. When people are in real setting, they're in a real setting, you're there now, I'm here right now. There's a vibe I'm getting off you, there's a vibe you're getting off me, right? In any setting, people have a strength of their vibes that they give off, right? These are from their body language, their IQs, their tone of language, the way they speak, their body movements, the most subtle thing that they have, even their deadly silence. Sitting in the corner and the guy hasn't said a word for 1 hour is a deadly vibe he's giving off in that room, because he might be upset, man. This guy's like quiet, and his face tells me that he's not happy with what's going on, what's being said, right? You get what I'm trying to say? Now, in a real setting, we've got a lot of things that are being, felt, absorbed, a lot of effects that we have inside ourselves that have been taken in real lifetime that you can't get online in a Zoom session or whatnot, right? And suhbah, look, what is suhbah? Suhbah is companionship. This is what Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam did with the Sahaba, okay? This is how change comes. Anyone who changes in life, ever, even recent times, they change with suhbah. Why do people change when they go to Hajj? Because they had suhbah of people in a massive gathering with so many people, and there might be temporary change, but they change. Why? Because of the companionship. Why do they change when they go on a weekend course? Why do they change when they go on the retreat? Why do they change when they go on these youth camps? Why do they change when they go on trips? Why do people change when they've got gangs out there? Why? It's suhbah. Gangs is suhbah, right? Why do they change when they come to the masjid? It's suhbah, it's companionship. Whenever you've got real companionship, people change, right? Now, yes, online has a very small part of that. It does still affect you. So your social media, your YouTube or your Zoom lessons, whatever, it will have some effect on you, but there's no comparison to real on-site. So what was the question again? It was about?
How can we apply the points discussed today for online teaching?
How can we apply? The first thing is, don't have any online lessons if you can have on-site lessons. Straight up. That's my first thing. If you've now, in an emergency, created an online lesson, then do your best of what you can through the camera, right? Trying to get your suhbah and companionship done with it. There will be some effect. I'm not saying there's no effect. There will be some effect. But it's never the same as real life. Okay, so do your best of whatever you can get across.
This question is from an instructor in a university. He said, someone from my students privately asked me about depression, particularly because of academics, and personal problems. So how can I help this person out?
Okay, so we're talking about people with depression, anxiety. There's mental stress and so on. In fact, in the Western world, the biggest, you can call it an illness, is stress. Stress, anxiety, depression. And one of the reasons why we're in this is because expectations of life was too high. That's one of the biggest reasons, that you were expecting, or you're made to feel or expect that you would get a certain level of something, okay? So anyway, it runs very deep in our societies, where right from the technology, from the kids, from the things that parents have given, from the technologies that we've got, from the freedom that we feel in our lives, from the enjoyments, relaxation, entertainment world that we have, all of this gives us a certain mode of life. Then you have to shift into a learning mode, right? Why is it that students today are feeling depressed or feeling, with a lot of stress? First is, either they were millennials, right, or they were Gen Z, which is that they've made, they have been pampered to a certain way. Let's not deny that. Okay, so they've been pampered to a certain degree. Second thing is, a lot of these kids that even now we're raising them up with every cushion, every comfort, oh my God, did you hurt yourself? Oh my God, yeah, Allah, yeah, oh. I mean, why are you doing that? My kid the other day hurt themselves. The other day they said, oh, my knee's hurting. I said, why? I fell down. I said, welcome to life. Welcome to life. See, get on with it. I mean, which person hasn't banged their knee? Who hasn't? Who hasn't banged their elbow? Who hasn't hit their funny bone? Who hasn't got burnt? Every human has got burnt. Now, when I was small and you hit your funny bone or you bang yourself, get on with it. I think this is something trivial. There's no issue about it. Worse, there's some blood coming out, we're going to put a plaster on it. These days, blood, oh my God, blood coming out, oh my God, like it's such a big thing. And oh, I can't move myself, I can't. Like, I'm not saying every kid is like this, right? But the general attitude we've got is that we're making things easier and easier and easier for kids. And what does that do? Well, that's going to make them stressful in life. Why? Because they're not prepared for the hard life out there. The moment these kids go into, they go to GCSEs, exams, college, university, now they're in the real life, the moment they have to pay for their own bills, the moment they have to do things, you know what these kids are saying? And I've heard, these are not kids, these are young adults saying it. These are 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds saying it, saying things like, oh, I had to clean the house. I had to clean the house. I had to iron the clothes. And I had to oh my God, I had to get prepared for the family dinner. Or I had to go and work at, oh my God, I went to central London for an entire day's meeting. You should have seen the rush hour I went through. And it was like sardine canned in the tube. And I went through that and I came back sweaty. Oh my God, it felt like I couldn't breathe inside there. I mean, get a life. As in, this is normal, right? For anyone who's commuting, getting a life. Why are these kids feeling that is so much? Because they were not prepared for it when they were young. So first is, please, let's stop spoiling these children. Make them go through a normal life. These things should be normal. You bang your knee, you hurt yourself, you this and that. It's normal. Somebody said something to you. Look, we'll deal with it, but it happens in life. Accept it, right? So one of the things is, look, to start at the end. Second thing is, let's say, for example, you've got now a university student that is getting depressed. Look, now you can't obviously now straight away say, go back in life, go back to the future. We're going to take you back in time and undo you all the damage. You can't do that. So what do you do with these kids? Well, one of the things is to make them understand, no, life is what it is. Right? And there's a bar of expectation, there's a bar of reality. The bar of expectation, if you're always thinking, your problem is hovering between the two bars. Now, if you get above that bar of expectation, then your problem has gone. But if you can't get above that, then you have to drop it down to the bar of reality, which is you accept it as it is. So you accept that your problem is going to be with you, right? That's one. Second is people need to have companionship. A lot of the online engagement people have got is an unreal world. It's causing a lot of extra stress. People need real people to engage with. You need love. You don't find love online. Straight up. Love of what? Love of parents, love of siblings, love of true family members, love of real people, love of real friends. Now that you've got to find in the real world, right? Not only love, but understanding. People need this, and these are relievers, because when you get into a problem, who do you go to? You go to people you can open up with. A lot of people don't find those people. They can't open up to people about their problems. You need to open up with your problems and not be judged, because these people love you, they understand you, they care for you. And then you give your stress out, and then they're wiser than you, and they talk to you through this thing. Oh, my beta, oh, my brother, oh, my sister, whatever. This is, what happened with me is this one day, and so on. So you learn from their experiences, you learn about your own thing, and you reflect and you think, you know what? Yeah, I've got to get through this, and so on. So this is one way of getting rid of the stress. Another one is they need to find solace with Allah Azza wa Jal. A lot of them don't understand what sabr is, what patience is, what tawakkul is, what depending on Allah is. They haven't really understood qadr properly, what fate is. Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, Qaddar Allahu ma sha'a fa'al. Anything bad happens in your life, you say, Allah destined this, and it's happened, and He did as He will, and move on. Don't make yourself feel, because depression is worry. Right? It's worry. What you're worried about. You're worried about what might happen, what will happen. That's where worry comes in, or what has happened. Worry, the reliever of this is, look, it's happened. Can't do anything about it. Allah willed it to happen. Let me move on. Let me now think, how can I make my next moves something that will bring me positivity, something that will not be the same type of mistake again. Just get up and move. Be positive. And that hadith that says, where Rasulullah talked about all these things, he said, Ista'in billah wa la ta'jiz. He said, put your trust in Allah. And he said, Ista'in billah, which is get your help, seek your help from Allah. And don't be someone who feels I'm unable to solve my problems. I've reached a stage of inability where I'm stuck. Don't feel that. Just seek your help, and if you can find the right thing, then that will help. And the final thing I will say with this is about sending salawat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A lot of people have found relief in sending abundant salawat on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Allahumma salli ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa barik wa sallimu sallallahu ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. And again, I normally say to people that when you're going to send salawat or any of the dhikrs, don't just do it as like sallallahu ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sallam. It's after a while you're going to feel that you're not engaging. So what do? Sallallahu ala sayyidina wa maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa sallam. So engage in saying the salawat or any dhikr in a way that you would really, feel that you want to say it over and over again. Okay, so there are many other forms, but let's move on, please.
So this brings us very well to the next question. So there are two different people asked question. I'll merge them together. So one of them is, can you have more advice on du'as with memorization with meaning? So teaching qaida and Islamic studies is easy to do in fun, engaging ways. But with year fours, this person's year fours struggle to learn the meanings with their du'as. So we've used tools of breaking down Arabic word with each meaning, but the whole class still struggles. And along with that, there's somebody else asked, if a child with dyslexia struggles to memorize, would it be acceptable for them to learn du'as in English instead of memorizing the Arabic?
Okay, so with memorizing du'as and so on, we've got two books that are du'as and surah books in safarpublications.org again. Each book has got your Arabic, it's got your English, it's got easy language, it's even got the fadila, it's got the encouragement from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Now the way we do it is this. First time round, just do Arabic. Don't do any English. First time round all the way through, Arabic. Let them at least get the du'as in. There's a certain point you stop, and you can see all of it in our books, where to start introducing the translations. Second time round they come, make them do their Arabic and English. All the words are there. And if they do it in a way where you're making them say because we've even broken the English in certain lines. So it's a bit of Arabic and that English. Bit of Arabic again of that dua, the English of that. Bit of Arabic and same English translation. It makes it very engaging for them second time round. So they've learned quite a few duas and they come back for the translation. That way it's easy, and we get them to do the whole thing twice over, once with just Arabic and once with English, and it comes at different times where they have to engage in the English. Now, with students who are struggling to learn the du'as, don't again make it the all and everything that these kids must know this dua, that dua. If they've got autism, if they can't really learn those du'as, either just stick with simple du'as that they're going to do, or like you said, get them to do some English du'as, or if they can't do any of that, with the autistic child and so on, sometimes it's better for them to have a few things, because look, they probably haven't got the mind to keep so much information in their minds. Autistic children are very good at one area, but that gives them a deficiency in many other areas. So this autistic child could be very good in maths, but not good in language at all, right? Some autistic children are very good at keeping information, and huge amounts of information. But then they might be very bad at having social skills and being good at social skills. Some are bad at social skills and good at other things, okay? Or good at social skills but bad at other things. So look, find out what their areas are. Don't go hard on any person with any disabilities. Make exemptions for them. Just make as many exemptions, because Allah's made exemption for anyone in the deen who can't do those things. For example, look, if somebody can't do ruku, did Allah tell them to do ruku? He didn't. They can miss ruku. If somebody can't do sajda, don't do sajda. Just bend down a little bit, lift your hands to your face. If a person can't bend down, Allah said lift your hands to your face. Now, normal people can't do that, but this person will do that. Somebody doesn't have water for wudu, do tayammum. So why are you applying your normal rules of the maktab to all these autistic or people with disabilities? Why? There should be a two-lane thing. This lane is for everybody, that lane is for those. And you don't question why this student doesn't have to do all the du'as, why they get 2 hours extra for exams, why they get, why they let off with this makhraj mistake and that dua not learned and we've still passed them on. Make whatever exemptions you want for them. But it should be based individually for every single child who has a disability.
What is the ideal of a 2 hours maktab day? For example, 30 minutes qaida, 30 minutes fiqh, 30 minutes stories, etc.
So again, with this, look, we've got in our FAQ on our website in separatepublications.org, you'll find a lot of this stuff where we've even given timetables. We've given timetables of how to structure your day, and there are many different timetables. So some might want to include Arabic, some don't want to include Arabic. Some want to have a longer du'as and surah session. Some want to have a shorter one. Some want to have 2 or 3 sessions with general knowledge of Islam and Islamic studies. Some don't want to have that. So look, go over there to our FAQs on our website and then you'll find a lot of these questions are answered.
Okay, there's so many questions. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to get through with all of them. We'll just ask one more question and then Shaykh was able to conclude, inshallah. So please, can you touch upon your opinion on exams, etc., and how their progress can be assessed, or how students' progress can be assessed without getting them worried about exams?
Okay, look, exams is that I said there's a small portion of students that do get scared about exams, but that's not everyone. Tests are necessary, but the test shouldn't become the final goal. The main thing is that we want these children to be prepared for a world that they're not prepared for today. If you got tests going on, the best way is to give them bite-sized revision parts of what you're teaching and keep that up every single lesson. By the end of the year, they'll have all the information in their heads. If you can organize your children to have bite-sized their own, make little bite-sized sessions of everything they've learned, okay, summarize their own sessions that they've learned and keep that going on where they revisit those sessions, what they have as bite-sized again and again throughout the year, they'll know what they need to know till the end of the year. Now, when it comes to the actual exams, for example, in Safar Academy, every 10th week we have a test. At the end of the year, we have a big test. We even give exam papers out to those who have taken our books. But look, with tests, you can do them whenever you want. But make sure that the tests are something that are not just looking for information that you want from them, but you want to see whether they've actually taken that learning and apply it to other areas of life. I think that's really important. Our workbooks actually do that. We don't just look for, there's a section in every single part of the workbook that looks for what they can recall as information. But straight after that, we actually try and see if the kids can take what they've learned and apply to different areas of life. That's real learning. Okay, and we did that in my MA Education Cycle. Is that's real? That's when you've really made something out of a student, which is preparing for that next world, which they haven't seen, you haven't seen as well, but you prepared them today for it. As a final thing, I'm going to give another reminder about the feedback. We are going to send the feedback to everyone who's engaged here, everyone who's signed up. And please give that feedback so that we can improve on the next one. And as I said, we are planning another one. So inshallah, we'll cover things that we haven't covered, inshallah, in this session for that one. Jazakumullah khair.